The video you're about to watch is quite long. Now, I know many of our streams are quite long, but this one is quite long because we talk about a single subject with pretty much nary a dice roll for a significant amount of time. In fact, the entire time of the stream that's about to come ahead. That being the case, if you're not into your crazy chat about crazy stuff, I recommend skipping this one. But if you are, buckle up, because some of the stuff that's about to come out is proper daft. Good luck with it. See you on the other side. So whose tale will we be doing today? Well, we will be doing, that's not necessarily the best language. You may. I do love opening a stream, as we intend to continue. So, we are going to start this one right at the end and bridging over from the end of episode number 44, where you received actual honors. Yeah!
Yay!
Actual honors from the Graf of Middenheim. Indeed, the Grand Graf, or the Grand Duke, depending upon which one of the many titles that he holds you prefer to go with. The Grand obviously marking him out as, importantly for much of our plot lines, an elector count. One of the very few people in the Empire who has the right to elect the next emperor. And of course, hold a Runefang. A Runefang you've seen several times now. And as you sat down in the armory waiting for that long day to see if any assaults were going to come, and seriously, leg jiggling, getting antsy, you couldn't help but look at the thing again and again. He ended up just leaning it against one of the walls because Boris also got pretty bored. He, however, didn't nap. He may be a man in his later years, a good bit over, you'd guess maybe 50s, 60s. He's much older than you first thought when you saw him at a distance. Up close, you can see the lines of age around his eyes. But at the distance, he just looked like, with his mostly auburn beard, like he was possibly even in his 40s. Mm-hmm. However, the gossip around here has led you into a different conclusion. And it's a conclusion which, now that you're standing, about to receive your reward, your actual medal, as the gathered court of Middenheim is around, you're pretty sure you're happy to confirm. You've seen the princess. She's young. You think late teens, early 20s. You think around there. And exceedingly pretty.
Humans.
But exceedingly pretty in a way that is remarkable. In that one will remark upon it. Mm-hmm. She has, just out of the old verbal description, just basic rules. She has a literal talent that makes her more beautiful than everybody else. Rise beauty, one of the chaotic blood traits. Mm-hmm. And it's remarkable in that everybody in this room would probably go, yeah, Katri is almost certainly the most stunning person I've seen in my life. And it's a somewhat universal thing, unlike what beauty is in general, where it tends to be somewhat subjective. There's obviously universal traits, symmetries, and certain luster to the hair or whatever it is that have a certain amount of, yeah, that person's probably attractive, but it doesn't mean that everyone's attracted. Mm-hmm. But for Yumi and her wandering eye, as she's not silently judging, but most certainly watching everyone, and a certain amount of silent judging as well, because back in the Altdorf court, she silently judged every noble that she met. Yeah. Were they worthwhile? Were they worthy? And if they weren't, she went back and she had a chat with the crooked fingers. This is someone we need to take down.
Mm.
Now, unlike her friends and how they treat her, back there, she was treated as almost, well, it wasn't just with respect, but complete deference, because she had more crosses than anyone else. Plus, she was known for being really rather vicious. She found people that she didn't like, and she listened to everyone's ideas of how to potentially bring them down. And Renald, non-lethal, usually. Non-lethal. And it was all about just bringing them as low as you possibly could. For Yume. Others sometimes went, we could go, let's say, in the spectrum of bringing them down from steal a bit of their stuff to absolutely ruining them so their entire families shun them and they're left begging on the street. And Yume always went for the lowest options. Some behind her back, and she knows because she listened in on it, thought she was vindictive because she herself was noble. And they knew this. She herself walked that court and had very little freedom, and perhaps it was the freedoms that they enjoyed that she was actually attacking. They did not use such clean, simple language.
Sure.
There was often many more swear words involved and a certain amount of don't let her hear you. But Yume herself always presented herself with a smile, which made her conclusions to most of these points, if anything, all the more shocking. No, worse. So here in the Middenheim court, she can't help but do the same. Now, she'd made mistakes in the past. She's not necessarily the best judge of character. She knows this. So she tends to want to make sure she's got it right before she starts trying to bring someone down. Largely because she made a few mistakes when she was younger and she brought the wrong people down. And there's nothing like the mistake you survive to be the best lesson. That's an Ulrican thing.
All right.
Yeah, she knows stuff. And she's made some mistakes. And here in Ulrich Central, it makes sense to at least continue on in such a fashion.
She's grown as a human.
She has. It's also fair to say that most of the Ulrichans and the court here have also grown as humans. They're so big. Unlike Altdorf, which has a really cosmopolitan court. It's not just that it's cosmopolitan and it's drawn from across the world. It's a mixture of heights for the people who are all local, so to speak. And even those who are local often have bloodlines from across the world also, because Altdorf has been the center of the empire for a very long time, a good almost 150 years or so. And in that time, trade has expanded and bloodlines have mixed, and Altdorf's just different. Up north, Middenheim's just different. They are mostly all of a similar stock. Tall, fair-haired, pale-eyed. And in some cases, very tall, very pale-haired, very pale-eyed. Indeed, Birdie looks like these people. And you can see, not Birdie, but you can see her face. You can see her blood echoing in a variety of faces around here. Yume is of no doubt at all that this is definitely Birdie's people, not your people. Yume's people are in the corner at the back. Something that she herself has been gently attempting to avoid. And as Boris drones on at the top about heroes being heroic, that she, of course, is 100% listening to as she's looking at him and also not looking at him at all, because you ain't seen me, right? One of the great joys of being her is that nobody really pays attention. She mutters away at little prayers. It's easy for us to, during play, say, you ain't seen me, right? And pull it out as a specific moment. This is the point when she's doing it. But she, for large periods of her existence, was just whispering prayers to Renald. Just whispering them away. No one's paying attention to her. It's how she got out of the palace again and again, how she got out from her home again and again, how she managed to pass through the East End again and again without trouble. She's used to not getting into trouble, even when she's done bad things, very bad things. She's just used to slipping through and being ignored. Everybody is looking on, certain amount of nervousness. Look how nervous Birdie is. She's trying to look like she doesn't care. She's doing that thing where I don't care, but it's almost like there's a bead of sweat at the side of her head and she's shaking. This is a recognition of sorts that she's never had by human society. You've already judged that she's barely human at all. Alamanawai, by comparison, her face is bland, putting on the elf that she often puts on. She's managed to drop her masks, but instead she's gone behind her face paint instead. Her face paint this time, though, is almost flesh-toned. So you only catch it in a certain light, and then it flickers and catches the light. She's always behind a mask, even when, at first glances, she's not. Leopold can't decide whether he looks self-righteous or terrified.
Or both.
You can't decide. What's going on in his head probably is completely different to what's going on in his face. That's something you've noted with Leopold. Again and again, you're certain he's thinking one thing, you talk to him and he says the opposite. Gerhardt almost slouches. He shouldn't, but he almost is. There's a part of you who wants to poke him. He wouldn't even notice. He wouldn't know where it came from. And indeed, he doesn't when you do. You were 3 seats down. It clearly couldn't have been you.
Yeah, of course.
But it's over in the corner. Your mother. She has an elaborate headdress. Long sticks. Piece of... It's beyond a veil. It's thicker, hanging down at the front, and also to either side. Her appearance completely covered. It's exceedingly well. You're going to guess printed. You're not quite close enough to determine whether it's printed or embroidered, but you know your mother's preferences. Probably printed. But you are finding it interesting that she's veiling herself again. That she's taking up a position that's almost imperial. She's playing the part of the imperial court, which means that she should be unseen. But she's not of the imperial family. Your father, by comparison, is lounging off to the side, with 6, 7 guards all around your mother, not around him, who's off to the side, just looking at the court, putting his fingers occasionally down his moustaches, looking not a day older maybe than, in a certain light, 20, in another light, 30. It's really difficult to tell how old your father is. You know he's older, quite a bit older, as he looks around and then catches your eye. Something that never happens to her, or very rarely happens, because most people either don't notice her or think she's looking in the other direction, even when she's looking straight at them. She's grown quite used to doing that thing that very few people do. Look someone else in the eye. Most people tend to not initiate that sort of close intimacy, especially if it's a stranger, someone you don't know. You sort of glance by and you're like, oops. Or you look away or you do some equivalent until you're actually engaged with them and talking, or you're trying to engage them. You're trying to say, hi, I'm over here. She's quite used to just staring at people. In a way that people were aware of this, they'd be a little bit uncomfortable. Comes across perhaps a bit intense. But no one generally sees her. Unless, of course, she wants to be, and that's different. She knows how to be polite. But when she's sitting there, let's say, people gazing, which is kind of what she's doing in the other court. She's just not used to someone else catching her. Her father does. And the slightest tweak of a smile hits the corner of his mouth as he sees you, and then just looks elsewhere as Boris up the front pulls out Peak Leveler. Peak Leveler, the Runefang of, let's say, the North. You are aware of the stories of the Runefangs. Great blades that were crafted 2,500 years ago by the dwarfs as a way of saying, thanks very much for saving us from all the greenskins. Sigmar, you're the best. Okay, that's not how the story was presented to you. It was far more, and then in days of yore. But nevertheless, that's what it boils down to. And these blades were handed over to the great tribal chiefs of the humans that were underneath Sigmar, but they were not finished until Sigmar himself had abdicated. So they were passed over after he had already left. And the Teutogan tribe, Teutogans are the people of the north around Middenheim, got Peak Leveler. It makes sense. Peak Leveler, Middenheim, that flattened top. The very fact that the blade can go through stone. It all makes sense, but the blade itself it's pretty impressive. It's silly. Almost to the point of it just looks a bit too big. A bit too big to wield. In Boris Todbringer's hands, and you've seen him pick it up, it looks a bit too big. Like it's bigger than a man should be able to carry. But you're aware that the sword that's currently with Alamenowith right now that nobody pays any attention to, all wrapped up on her back, that sword is light, very light. It's made of a metal that has a different weight than you'd expect for its hardness. And you imagine peak leveler is the same. Looks heavy. Oh, he's warbling on about things. You catch the edge of it. And then you hear your own name. Oh shit, you're supposed to be moving.
Oops.
Do yourself.
Oh, no.
Do yourself an initiative test. Just initiative, nice and neat, to see if she actually responds in time. How quick on her feet is he? How sharp is her mind as her thoughts are drifting around in Yume-shaped circles?
Rude.
Rude and true.
Are we going to start using 14 points
Well, one of the great joys of being Yume is that you have many a fortune point.
Yeah, I have 6 now. Of which...
You only have 5 left?
Yeah, I'll use it.
Love it.
That's much better. That is... Oh, exactly.
Exactly on.
Yeah, exactly
She
on.
could not look sharper if she tried. She was waiting for this moment. And even though her mind may have been dancing around the various individuals around the court, she's already marked out which ones are the Hellsteins. She's already marked out which ones are the Torlochelms. She's already recognizes it. Look at them, their pantry armor. She's marked out, in fact, there's a lot of noble lines here. Many of them have got heraldry, including boats. Quite a few Imperial crosses around. You are, the Imperial Cross, if it's on a piece of heraldry, means that someone in their ancestry earned one. The Imperial Cross is the highest honor that you can get in the Empire. You become a literal hero of the Empire when you get one of those. And it can only be granted by the Emperor himself. That's tickling through her mind, as no one would know that she's in a completely different realm of thought as she drops forward and stands before Boris Todbringer. Boris Todbringer is a big fellow, and this close you can definitely see he is pretty much the older man you thought he was. And it's here that you can see over his shoulder to another. Someone you've met, someone you've seen, and now up close you're beginning to judge differently. Henry. Henry Todbringer is not in the royal party. Yeah, he's off to the side. He is enormous. Stands a full head and shoulders above most of his peers. Even in the land of the tall, this man is somewhat of a giant. And he's also older than you first thought he was. And as Boris is giving a small speech about what you did, how heroic you were,
Thank you.
the entities that you brought down, and the words are washing over you. You are actually looking at Heinrich. Because he also has lines around his eyes. Boris, at a distance, you'd have easily put at 40. Now up close, 50, really close. You're now verging on 60. He holds himself well. He's a lot older than you first thought. And you've heard the term old blood in the Empire more than once. Look at the daughter. Look at the son. Old blood. It means something in the Empire. It also means something where you come from, but in a very different way. And you actually think he might be a lot older than the 20-something you first thought he was. Just because of the eyes. Now, if he was like your father, this would be when he'd go, why is she staring at me? But he doesn't pay attention to it in the slightest.
Yeah, he's probably used to it.
He's blind to the fact that she's just looking at him with an intensity that would certainly surprise Boris, who's quite convinced that she's looking at him. But Boris is speaking to the court. He doesn't even see that she's looking over there. Yeah, you think Heinrich might be a lot older than you first thought. Fascinating. He also carries himself in a way that you have really punished many times. He, you conclude with absolutely no fair assessment for this, is an imperial noble, regardless of his bastard origins, regardless of anything else. He is someone who clearly has an enormous, I'm more important than everyone else chip in his shoulder. Possibly because he's not.
Yeah.
Possibly because he's trying to grab at something. But there's a little book at the back of Yume's head that she can't help but write, yeah, Heinrich should be on that one. Why? I don't know yet. I will find out. Because she doesn't make the mistakes she made in her youth. Much.
Because the fact that he was friends with Lucas, was that something we know in character? I can't remember anymore. I think that is, right?
Yeah.
And Lucas is one.
Lucas, yeah, Lucas tutored him. Lucas, unlike the rest, though, Lucas is not old, as Gerhardt likes to keep on saying, because Lucas is his friend. No, his servant. No, his footman. No, his advisor. And Lucas is, you think, a lot older also than many think. Even though he's generally placed in his 40s or his 50s. He holds like a man who's in his 90s sometimes.
Well, we do put him for a long.
But you definitely think that he's a good bit older also. It's difficult to pin down how he doesn't sit and tell everyone how old he is. But you've vacillated from one extreme to another. You don't necessarily get it sometimes when you're trying to figure out how old different people are, particularly when you've got people like Boris. Boris, who's literally pinning the silver talon. Bang. Claw. We get there. How many different bits of animal can we go for? Claw upon your chest. As it turns out, though, your attention was so elsewhere, even that was wrong. He just pointed at someone else to do it. And you mixed them up for a moment and realized that Boris is looking down at you, looking very big and stern. And it's getting pinned into place. And then all around, the wolves let loose an ululation, a howl. White wolves. You purposely not looked at one of those. Ulrich.
Hello.
Yeah. He's here also. Watching. Why you haven't looked at him? Because you half expect him to look back. The next couple of hours in the morning are hectic, actually. You are quizzed by one of the mid-marshals, who is very keen to know everything that happened. You have things you wanted to do, stuff to get involved with, but they just keep on getting in your way and asking questions. And it's an exhausting 2 hours worth of download, effectively. The information that you hold gets passed over to the authorities of Middenheim. It's edited to a degree and often makes you all look a little bit better than you necessarily deserve. But you did succeed in the end, so you deserve all plaudits. It's that simple. You're also aware that the Middenmarshal has been ordered to provide you with whatever equipment you require. That, however, stands in almost stark contrast to something much, much more almost gratifying. A man by the name of Broydel. He is the palace chamberlain. Now, you have met many people you would describe as snivelling. He is very close to one of them. He's somewhat balding. His nose is a little bit too hawkish. His chin is a little bit too weak. He looks like the stereotype that many believe the Reiklander noble falls into. In truth, the Reiklander noble is not that stereotype at all, in the same way that this stereotype of all the lords from the north isn't all giants. Well, maybe they are. And as her head again runs off in different directions, Bruegel, the chamberlain of the entire palace, sees her to her chambers.
Nice.
And this is where we probably properly begin. Bruegel opens the door to an actual palatial set of chambers and says, yes, these are your chambers that have been laid out for you by royal decree. He says, Your Imperial Highness, the truth is out. They know. And for all you've been apparently kicked out by your mum, they apparently don't care in turn.
Okay.
You know that your parents have been given an entire suite of quarters up in the Kralaplatz.
I mean, at least they didn't put me with them. That would be awkward.
The carnival is now over, so you've been given a small, it says, host of servants to support your needs. If there is anything you require, speak to them.
Thank you.
A group of 20 to speak to, who all come filing in.
Small.
It reminds you of being younger.
Mm.
And you go down the line, you shake their hands, doing something you would never have done, ever, and your father would never have done, and your mother would never have done, but you're none of them.
Yeah.
And it is typically expected for an imperial noble to go down and inspect, and touching is forbidden. The imperial line.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. You get an immediate assessment of all of them. Some of them are a bit confused, some are a bit unsure. You do not look like what they expected. Some form of noble is at the very least their expectation, but you are just a relatively well-presented foreigner.
You get away with a lot, though, if you're foreign. They don't know what to expect.
Yeah. And they don't. Some of them look a bit confused. Some of them try to hide it. Some of them look genuinely amused. You're so young. They place you younger than you actually are. Because they just don't know the telltale signs of age. The issue that you have when you're attempting to age all these people, you just sometimes get it wrong.
Yeah.
Same as playing in return here. Go down the line, shake the hands. The head of the serving staff gives you a speech about how when breakfast is served, how your beds are turned down, how everything works here. You get a small tour of your rooms, all 6 of them. And that doesn't include the servant quarters that are off to the side.
Wow.
In total, 12 rooms dedicated to just you. They're just for you.
Wow.
Just for you. You've got your own reception rooms. You've got your own little sun room near the front where one can just sit and, as she puts it, quite a few of the young ladies that visit like to take their breakfast there. If you'd like to have your breakfast there, you just tell one of the servants. You'll attend, won't you, loves? And we'll have your breakfast served there. Now, we normally don't stock any of the fires. It'd be nice summer. She says, however, we understand that some of our... And she pauses. External visitors prefer to have warm rooms. If that's the case, you just say so and we'll have them stocked up for you and ready when you waken. You need anything at all, you just ask. And then you hear off to the side, one of them said, she saved the Graf's life. You did that, and you have our thanks. You're not used to this.
Yeah, I know. That was
This-
super nice.
This isn't respect based on your rank.
Uh-huh.
This is respect based on your deeds. This isn't respect based upon having done things for your god.
Scary things that make people scared.
This is respect just simply based on the fact that you saved the life of someone that they all think is important and that they have been working for probably all their lives. And you realize that a lot of the hesitation that you were laying down at it's because I'm from somewhere else, isn't it? It's not. They're actually just nervous to be in your presence.
That's nice.
Because you saved the Graf's life. You think you might have misjudged it. Oh.
That hasn't happened in a while. It's a nice surprise. No, the misjudging part, not the...
Yeah. Huh. And then, of course, they ask, is there anything that you need? We'll be serving lunch, by the way, in an hour.
Oh, thank you. Has she had time to, like, wash up since the whole
yes, she got washed up early in the morning, taken out, and the medal giving, so to speak, took place on the same morning that the 24 hours passed on. Everybody went off, got cleaned up, napped in a few cases, came out in the morning. The entire court was summoned because Boris bloody said so.
Yeah.
Very much rubbing it in. Look at what these people did, and all of you completely failed to see. And then off you go to your own special palatial area. But that said, you are pretty tired too. It has been a very long previous day.
Yeah.
The tension, the expectation at any moment to be attacked leaves you high-strung, and the release as it passed over.
No, she'll say, no, thank you. I'm okay. I just need some time to myself. So if you could leave me to myself until lunch, that would be great.
Once you're served, you want to have it in your little summer room?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It's lovely. Your room looks out over the north. Now, to give us a quick idea, you've got the big rock, the palace is at the top there, most of the city tumbles down from up there, and the palace looks north over Nordland. A bit in Middenheim, but it goes off into Nordland. All the mountains heading off in that direction, all the forests leading off, with the various peaks going into the distance, and it just goes off to the grey. And it's one hell of a summer's view. A small flock of birds passing over in the front.
Nice.
It's breakfast of queens.
By the way, as soon as they left earlier, she's like jumping onto the bed like tiny elves coming to take over in the back.
Look, it's an elf army. Yeah, no, none of that at all. At this angle, you don't even see the major roads, although there is one that winds off into the forest towards your top right.
I think potentially, if she has time, she'd like to do the like maintenance on her sword that she's supposed to do.
I like that. And she can be oiling the blade, making prayers along its edge, speaking its name, making it feel safe. The spirit of the blade. And ensuring that the spirit of the blade is properly respected for the work that it has done.
Yeah.
Because you know that this blade is, at its heart, angry. At its heart, it seeks to do harm against those who would do harm. And that anger sometimes requires calm patience. And you don't sharpen the blade. Although you go through many of the same processes, you calm it. Working your way along its edge, calming the blade, which in turn is quite calming for yourself. A low, ululating mixture of prayer and song just reminds you of being younger. It's odd not having to worry about answering your own doors or worrying about others arriving. You have staff. You have actual staff.
Like lots.
And it's one of them that comes through, curtsies, and says, Your Imperial Highness says, there is a Sir Toil here to see you concerning business that he would not entirely divulge. If you wish me to see him out, you just tell me and I'll send him out in his ear.
Thank you. I'll have remembered her name.
Alika.
Thank you, Alika. No, just let him through. I'll meet him in the other room.
I'll send him through to your withdrawing room.
Thank you.
Your withdrawing room has windows that look out over. It's a far less impressive room than your summer room. Your summer room, you note, however, is not a summer room. It didn't take much for you to realize this. It's pointing in the wrong direction. And it gets almost no proper sunlight. Middenheimers. Who can say?
Yeah.
But you do get a beautiful view of summer.
Of summer, yeah. So maybe, you know what?
Maybe they just think differently.
Yeah.
Sir Toil, of the very famous Toil line of Middenheim. You know that they're a thing.
Yes.
You've met him.
Yes.
He even said
Drake.
he'd help you out once. Yes, he's Drake. That's how to remember him. He's not wearing his helm, which is most disappointing. Toil helmless is, again, you think, possibly a lot older than you first estimated. You are beginning to come to terms with the fact that possibly these northerners are just not what you are used to.
Yeah.
You think now, as he stands there and turns round and looks at you, maybe 40s?
Or maybe there's a lot of wind and they squint a lot and they're wrinklier. I don't know.
Yeah. Who can say? Maybe 40s, you think, possibly. As he looks and says, first I would like to offer if you don't mind, Your Imperial Highness, apologies for not knowing your station when first we met. Absolute lie. He knew. It was pointed out to him at the time. And probably why he gave you the favor in the first frickin' place. As openers go, immediately put your...
On the outside show pretend, of course, to, curtsy back, all that kind of stuff.
No, you don't curtsy.
Well,
yeah, but you can if you wish. But that'd be you purposefully not doing what you would do. You would just stand. Okay.
I will just stand. If he's gonna make a point about her being Imperial Highness, why not act like it, right?
I apologize for interrupting. I'm aware that you were, and he pauses, very busy yesterday. He says, there was a long wait yesterday. I just wanted to, he says, and then pauses. There's no easy way to say this. I have a son.
Yes.
Uh-oh. He says, and he's of age. I wondered if you'd like to meet him. It's exactly what you think. He says, I'm not going to... I understand that you might not be used to such forward bluntness, perhaps. He says, but in the north, we tend to just get to the point. We might be dead the day after. And he's been watching you. He first saw you in the palace when you first arrived, and he's been talking about you ever since. And he asked me to make an introduction, and I'll be honest, I said no, and I said no. And then, of course, everything occurred. And you might not have noticed because he was one of the knights that was guarding the graph just yesterday. He had his helmet on, so you couldn't tell probably that he was just gawking like an awkward child. Bless him. I love him dearly, but he has very little in the way of true charisma. He's not exactly one, shall we say, that is used to dealing with the, how would he put it? Girls. That's what he would probably say. Which I think is frankly ridiculous, given that a good quarter of our order are women.
Mm-hmm.
A quarter. You think he'd be used to it, but he just squirrels himself away like the little boy that he is, mixing with what he already recognizes. But he's been quite smitten, I think, so I'm talking too much. I'm doing, yes, well, my wife, she would say stop. And so I am just assuming that she's there on my shoulder. I didn't think this would be as awkward as it is. It's awkward. So let's cut past the awkwardness and simply say, would you be interested in meeting him, perhaps for dinner or lunch or something similar? If you don't like him, say it to his face. He deserves it.
Just out of character.
Yes.
Usually they would go to her parents.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, you can even query it.
Yeah. Why come directly to me? Is this also a
No, well,
thing?
you've been exiled by your family, which
Oh,
means
of
that
course.
there is absolutely no point going to them. And further, opportune. He goes, no, let's just be blunt again. He says, you're a free agent, like a freelance, I suppose, without order. And I see absolutely no reason that you can't make your own decisions. Here in the North, you tend to find that we are much more self-driven. Propriety is, of course, important. But what's more important is doing the right thing in the correct circumstances and doing in your heart what you feel is right. And in my heart, I feel it is right that my boy should do this himself. But he is my son. He says, so I thought, why not? And besides, you're a hero now. If you can't make your own decisions, then who can?
Of course. Well, I
You do
appreciate
realize that you have the title of Hero of Midnight.
Yes, I am wrapping my head around
You so didn't know you had it as a title.
what this
And
means.
that means that if you are ever introduced, you will literally have the title Hero of Middenheim.
That's pretty damn cool.
You didn't know that.
Yeah, of course I knew.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Of course I knew that.
Well, okay. Well, it would be interesting.
It can be added to your heraldry. But it says,
what does it look
the
like?
Silver Claw of Middenheim.
Oh,
It can be added to your heraldry. You, I presume, don't have Imperial heraldry. We would need to make a forward, not we, I say we as if I have anything to do with this, but you would need to make a petition. That's down in, it's handled in Altdorf. Although we do handle things here in Middenheim as well, but it wouldn't gain Imperial recognition unless you went to the capital. It's always in the capital. So if you're ever passing by Altdorf, I recommend getting your heraldry registered so no one else can take it. And you can by law, by Middenheim law, add that to your crest because you are a hero of Middenheim.
well,
As could your children, if they take on your heraldry here and there.
yes, that's something to consider. Up until now, we were in the employ of the young Freud, so we often wore their heraldry, which I guess could also add.
Well, of course. Young Freud man has also become a hero of Middenheim,
Yes.
which is very disappointing to many here. Largely because he is from the Reichland.
Yes.
I can assume that you already are aware of just how much that has gone down well in certain quarters. We have a group of what, how can I put this simply? Tribal affiliation, our old tribal roots are very important to the people of the North. And those who can draw their bloodlines back to the original tribes are granted certain societal benefits. And they are quite convinced they're the only ones who should be able to receive that particular honor. Which, it's fair to say, arguably only one of you has any right to claim.
Well, in certain towns, we're all married, so it kind of makes sense.
Then it is marvelous. As for my request.
As for your request, I did have plans. Actually, it's very fortuitous. I was hoping I could pass on the message. Perhaps you could do that while I'm at...
Door opens. Servant comes over and whispers in your ear,
okay.
So as not to interrupt. Someone came to your father and is currently waiting in the second reception room. Someone claiming to be your father is waiting. And she goes,
Interesting.
I am happy to tell him to either wait or just sling his hook. To wait or sling his hook.
That would be hilarious. But I'll be with him in a second. Thank you. Interesting. I believe I may not be free anytime soon, but I am interested in meeting your son, perhaps, if not now, when we come back.
Good. He says, I shall pass on the kind regards, expect some sort of, it's almost going to be a lovesick note or something, perhaps with a flower. Do you have a preferred colour?
Orange?
Orange. I can think of some examples of something he might organise. but I shan't help him. He says, as he then clicks his heels together, and says, "It is a delight, as always, to be in your presence, Mum." Says, "May your future endeavours be as impressive, and may I dare say more so, than those that have most recently passed." It says, "Oh, I didn't tell you his name, did I? Rudolph." It says, "It's a mother's choice." He mutters under his breath. And so he goes out, reaches the door and says, "Oh, he's my seventh son." One more time. It makes it
Good day.
red. Seventh son.
Seventh son.
Seventh. Does that mean something? You don't know.
Only if he was also 7.
Father's apparently waiting in the other room. Or someone claiming to be your father. It could be anyone.
It could be anyone.
Hopefully someone else. You have a second reception room, not your withdrawing room. Do you have somewhere where they just wait? Is there like a line of chairs for all the visitors who might arrive? New Chambers is great.
I'm going to ask. No, I'm not going to ask. I'm going to go and see if I can find one of those, the peepholes that usually like normal rooms, just to be able to take in the image of my father waiting in a waiting room to speak to me.
You'll need to ask if there is such a thing.
Okay, I'll ask.
Servant. Well, I wouldn't. Why don't I ask Mistress of Chamber? She goes off. Mistress of Chamber. Arrives as she bows her head and says, "I believe you're interested to know if there's any way you can see who's sitting inside reception room before you arrive."
Yes, please.
Says, "Well, as it turns out, there is. This palace is very old." She says, "There's many tunnels that make their way in and out of here. Grafts in the past. Would like to find ways out to mix with the people for whatever reasons that they individually preferred. No judgment coming from myself, of course, not for one of the old grafts. Or Graffinas, or Gravins, or Gravinas, or different families have different preferences. I trust you avoid any history book. It's like trying to read through, what would you call it, maze. Like Wolf Maze, out back.
Yes.
Are you a girl? What did come second in that?"
Yes, I think it was second, right? Yeah. Yes, yeah.
"I saw you over there that day."
Oh, really?
"I were. So, was that your fancy, man?"
Well, it's complicated.
Oh, is it now?
Yes.
Right, if you come this way, she says. Now, the only way to gain entrance to this one is from your bedroom back at closet. Says, you'll find quite a few closets here in Palace. Have got secret doors, entrances, and the like. Don't know why they chose closets. It's not a closet.
It's like a
big, huge, freaking walk-in wardrobe. This one being pretty much empty because you have nothing to fill it with. Oh, wouldn't it be great if you did 1,000 outfits for 1,000 crime? Oh.
Someone need disguises.
She goes to the back and sticks her hand into one of the drawers and pulls, and it causes a click. She says, "Right, if you come in here," she says, "some of the servants use this way. This is just a small back corridor. It goes round to the servant quarters at the back. We've got a feeling that whoever used to live in these rooms, whenever it was in the past, might have been having an affair with one of the servants. And they got doors opened where previously they weren't. Most of the walls have got passages running through them. They're mostly used for servants to scutter up and down so they don't interrupt anyone. But some of them were blocked off and they became secret passages. This one here is blocked off. It's entirely internal inside the suite, but it does allow you, if you come down this way."
This is like a Reynolds's wet dream. So many secret passageways.
You're going to need if you use the small steps and stool, you should probably be able to see through grate at top, and you'll be able to see down into room.
I think tall Middenheim is.
Yep, you're up on your tiptoes, looking over by the grate, your eyes barely reaching, and your father is there. His hair is up and is almost gleaming with oil. Wide shoulders, wearing lacquered armor.
Wow.
Like he himself intends to go to war with something. and the lacquer is in swirls that move into demonic faces. It's some impressive shit.
Mm-hmm.
You've only ever seen him with that once. There's a mask sitting over on the table with a twisted demonic face on it, all marked out with golden teeth.
Wow, he's come real dressed up.
2 blades in his back. 2 blades to either hip. Long flow of his robes. He is, however, wearing completely the wrong shoes. Just completely the wrong shoes. He's wearing Imperial shoes of soft manufacture with a proper grip on the bottom. You know that your father likes shoes with grip. Likes shoes that give him traction.
Mm.
You remember him arguing with your mother, who was always all about putting on the right face.
Mm.
Him going, but I like these shoes. And here, it turns out, he still likes the shoes.
Yeah.
He is looking out the window with his hands on his hips, back straight, just gazing out towards the forest, occasionally shaking his head.
Well, I guess.
It's him.
Yeah. I better get going then, and she'll get back down and thank the lady.
And she says quite lowly, "It is your chamber, Mum." She says, "As long as you're here, we're here to serve you in turn."
Thank you. You've been doing great.
I've got rooms.
Cool. Yeah, she'll head over.
She makes her way into the chamber, which involves her not opening the door and her being announced by her servants.
Mm.
Indeed she is. The question is, are you being introduced as Princess Umi or as something else?
Well, I mean, I am exiled. Maybe I should use Hero of Middenheim.
Yeah, you can choose whatever choice you want. These are your rooms.
Yeah, I'll be Hero of Middenheim for me.
And what Numi? What Nami?
Numi
is she going to go by?
Lady?
Lady.
I'll do Ume.
Umi, sounds good. Lady Umi, Hero of Middenheim. As she bows once, and you come in. He turns round. And he has one of those annoying looks in his face. And they're annoying because you've seen this look in his face more times than you care to mention. It's normally the face that he puts on when your mother and he have been arguing. And you can't tell if he's won or lost, whether it's good or bad, whether he's happy or sad, whether up is up and down is down. That annoying look, the look that he's clearly practiced, which is blank. A look that she herself has also practiced, because it's the only look she was ever allowed to have. As he just looks. Curtsy from the servant, who then closes the door. As he then turns out and looks towards the trees and says in Reichsfield, "This is a lot of trees."
It is.
Nods, goes, "You'd think that for a place so populous, they would have at least hacked it back a bit. Fields, something. How do they feed everyone?" She moves up to the window and looks down. "There's no farmland I can see from here. Yeah, I know there's some in the south. We passed it when we arrived. So much fertile land, I presume. Look at all the trees. Respect for the wood. Is it that?"
Did hear there's wood elves nearby. What you call them, wood elves? Elves in the wood. Perhaps there's a deal with them.
I spoke to one of them. They live off to the northwest, I think. It says, some distance away. Not this close. Not this close. I hadn't really taken it in until now. It looks out. I hadn't taken it in. It's very impressive. Think of where our woodland hides. Points. Can you see it? And he's pointing off towards the northeastish. You're not sure what he's pointing at, though.
She has a telescope. Could she like
Marvelous.
crank it up?
Telescope, yeah, absolutely. Do some perception tests as well.
One success.
You can see glimmering in the grey haze in the distance, slightest smudge of grey rising up in that direction. So you can imagine all the treetops and just a slight rise as he's looking, pointing that direction. As you think you've got it, and it's smudgy and grey through your lenses. Then you try it, you can't see that at all with your naked eye. Nope, there's definitely something there. It's an elven tower. It says, ruined. Can you see it?
I think
Use
so.
your eyes from me. And he says in Nipponese, your eyes, just look. Nope. Nope. I'll let you do a perception test.
Sure.
I mean, you might crit it, and then maybe.
No.
Or you might not. As you look out towards it, he looks down at you. Can't see it, can you?
See grey?
That is sad. His bat's resting in it. He says, he looks down at you. How good is your father's eyesight?
I know. Elf bullshit.
Elf bullshit. Tiny elf bullshit.
Tiny elf bullshit. This isn't facing the same way as the summer room, right?
Is it?
So-
Oh,
is it the same?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Father, would you like to come in to a...
You'll have a better room?
Yes.
Then, of course. Be a guest of my own. And then he whispers in Nipponese. He says, daughter, hero of Middenheim. He says back to Reichspiel. Who would have thought? You take him through. Sits down. He looks out. It is very, very empire.
Yes.
And with one lip at the side, goes and whistles. Servant comes in. We should like some of whatever you call tea, please. Reichspiel. In cups. China cups. Please. It's going to be one of those earthenware clay things that they use. We didn't bring anything like that with us when we came up north. We brought weapons, we brought armor. But we didn't bring the important accoutrement of life. And then he switches over to Nipponese and says, it's a pretty horrible place. Dead.
Yes. I don't remember much, but even I remember the difference. Although,
As he leans back in his chair.
I'm not sure how much sightseeing you've been allowed to do, but there are certain parts that are not quite so dead.
And back in Reichspiel, I went out with the Knights Panther. They were doing a circuit, as they referred to it. They went out for a 3-day hunt through the forests and the intervening tracks to find. They used a variety of words, but it's obvious as he switches to Nipponese, they were looking for mutants. altered back to Reichspiel. Twisted ones, beastmen. But as it turned out, they weren't interested in the children of the forest, whatever other preferable euphemism that they went for. They were simply interested in hunting down men. It was interesting to see. And they were not unsuccessful. There's a lot of darkness in this place, and back to Nipponese. Their souls are twisted, and nothing is being done to stop it.
And she'll continue in Nipponese and say it's been legalized down south.
What choice do they have? He says in Nipponese. It is inevitable. There is nothing they can do to stop it. And continuing Nipponese. And using words, I'll shift the terms that I was going to use and I'll make it into terms that are directly applicable so that you understand what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use words like magic.
Okay.
But he's not using those terms per se.
Okay.
As he then says, the great lines of magic rippling through the land move without dam, without shaping, without spirit. They are free to tear through the souls of these people. Unchanneled. Natural rivers, if it were natural. There's nothing natural about it. This place is doomed. But your mother is certain it is not. And so I find myself here with my most beautiful daughter, the hero of Middenheim, showing some of her quality finally. It is interesting to see what happens when you are set free.
Well, I'm glad I didn't disappoint.
Oh no, you did that when you were younger, when we let you slip out every day. Oh.
Well. Yeah, well, he kind of alluded to knowing that last time we spoke.
Yeah.
So I meant to be found out.
You could do anything, and you chose a life of skullduggery. Anything. With anyone. Anywhere. Oh, I'm a great believer in free will. You see, you and I were different opponents. And he stretches out. Oh, pretty. He says,
I've had already my first proposal today.
have you? More will come. I have some things that I need to tell you. Says in Reichspiel.
Uh-huh.
I have to tell you them. Your mother doesn't want me to. But given what happened yesterday, given what you did, you have to hear some of it. Some of it you know already. Some of it you don't. Some of it's important. Some of it's just foundation work, so you understand the rest. It's important, though. Very important. But before I do that, I do have a few questions, because I know you're sharp. Far sharper than your sister. She was never sharp. She was filled with duty. As she should be.
Of course.
But no, you weren't. And given your reign loosened, no, you went in a very different direction to her. We did the same with her.
Oh, really?
Yes. You know what she did? She went to temple. And she practiced blade.
We're different people, I guess.
Yeah, so before I say anything, why do you think we're here? And he smiles, and then in Nipponese says, the real reason.
In Middenheim or the Empire?
The Empire.
It's probably safer to say this in Nipponese. Servants listen.
And partly the passageways.
Yeah, there's passages and peepholes. The
door bursts open as you're thinking, a clatter of plates.
Oh, thank God. I have time to think.
And tea and steam
Uh-huh.
and very heavy-looking cups. And what they probably believe is some sort of important other pieces of empire.
Sure.
China.
Uh-huh.
As he looks at it. Thank you. And then picks up the pot. It's a black tea. Expensive. Come from Marienburg, I think. It will do. This.
Thank you.
Then he makes a small prayer to the spirits of the land. And for all they've been abandoned, he has not abandoned them. His sentence doesn't quite make sense in a way you'd expect.
Mm.
So he then sups it and pours the rest down. Do the same, please.
Of course. Thank you, spirits. And then she'll pour.
As he looks down and takes his finger, swirls it around. Tea shifts. A small flash of a character. It's not one you recognize. Or maybe you're viewing upside
upside down.
As I thought as much. You've been blooded. You probably don't know it yet.
What does that mean?
Whatever it was you killed spilt its blood on you.
Oh.
Normally this doesn't happen until we take you up to one of the northern gates. Well, it shouldn't happen until you're at least 30. But you were always precocious, weren't you? So, why are we here?
Oh, of course.
Says, I'll get you a proper cup this time.
Thank you.
How many people do you think there's going to be? They're giving us 8 cups. Says it, he passes it over. These people are ridiculous.
Everything is bigger in Middenheim.
I mean, it's not to feed the servants. You don't put anything in your tea, do you? Please tell me you don't.
No, I know better than that.
Mother has taken to putting honey in it. She drinks.
Well, she is in mourning. You should give her some leeway.
I shall not.
From what I've gathered.
And he smiles. I knew it wouldn't be a simple answer.
The land here is very different to back home. But there are places that are equivalent to some of our gates. I was near one a few days ago where I got injured. And I believe that you have always been arguing about what to do with the gates back home. Perhaps this was one way for you to learn what the consequences of doing one of the choices is, to shut them off, to break them, to never open them again.
No, it's nothing to do with that at all.
Oh, well, okay.
He says, interesting though, that you should think that. No, not really. But I suppose it's related. It's related. We have withheld a great deal from you because you are of an unfortunate birth. Now, I believe Jiro might have lost his composure in saying this.
Made it apparently very clear
Did
to
you understand what he meant? And
some
where his
of it.
vitriol was born?
We disagreed, so clearly I don't understand.
Oh, how to explain this? Very simply. You must realize that you are from an old line. You know this. The Imperial line is old. There's what? 19 generations between you and our beginning. I'm 19, you're 20. You have any children, they'll be 21. And we don't have children unless we are given permission, because we carry very dangerous blood. And we have a purpose. This, you know, is our purpose, to see off the hordes, so to speak. To hold back those that live in the Shinkai. That is what we are there to do. It is simple. It is clean, and it is mostly a lie. Mostly. And you would have found that out when you were 30. You'd have been sent home eventually. You would have been accepted. The Emperor likes you. He met you when you were just after your first year of life, actually. He blessed you with his blood. You were accepted into the family. But the rest of the family didn't like it. The Emperor's not a popular man. And older members of the family, they kicked up a fuss. All because of your mother. Your mother's not of pure blood. Which means that any children that I have with her are not certain to be pure. Now, I have withheld from you what that really means. And I did it with good reason, because there was no reason for you to be burdened. You were young, and I wanted you to be free. I had no worry for you. I don't carry the same concerns these people do. They are so worried about their children being corrupted or changed or becoming something new. You are incorruptible, except by your own choice. And if I don't give you freedom, that choice will always be in an antagonism with me. So freedom is important. You must have the freedom to make your own choice, Uzume. I gave your mother the same freedoms when we first came here. You sought to test me. Didn't believe me. I don't actually care about the things that everyone else cares about. My food is only really half here on Earth. My other food is in heaven. And in heaven, none of the things that mortals care about matter. We're just roiling bits of dirt. And who cares where they squirm? Oh, your mother cared. Now, obviously, I've now compared her to a roiling piece of dirt. I understand that my metaphor perhaps would get somewhat of a frown from her. This is where an argument would normally begin. She's a very passionate person, as am I, about the things that are important to me. But I don't care if she should have 1,000 sexual partners or one. I don't care if she meets her death or lives.
Poker face.
Dad! He says, I have exactly the same lack of care for what my sons or daughters do. We are not mortal. We are different. At least we should be. I am. You probably have to. You know, mother's blood. I suppose I should explain it all, shouldn't I? Your mother doesn't want me to explain this, but I'm going to. Because you're busy. Clearly.
Yes.
Finally, you've started to become yourself. I like that. Your mother hates it. She's afraid for you. She thinks you might get hurt. She doesn't realize really what it means to be a member of the Imperial line. Just how unlikely it is for any of this to hurt you. You have divine blood in your veins, and you're roiling piece of filthy dirt that spreads around here and there. I know I'm not supposed to use such flippant language, but I was never particularly interested in the way my father presented these things. He gave me the same freedoms when I was little. I was young, when I was in my 20s, actually. Long before I went off and I had my first war at the gate. And I spent most of my time with Roni, moving around. I actually fought in... Not that you need to know the details, but I fought against my own father on the battlefield.
I see.
It's actually where I met your mother. We were on opposing sides. I happened to be on the same side she was on, in a state of rebellion. And much like you, I chose a different track than perhaps my parents would have preferred.
And you thought mine was bad?
Or you rummaged around with filthy criminals on the streets. At least I rode a glorious steed. And I played flute. To battle.
I have someone who does that for me now.
But I was younger, and I thought that I had been strangled by the yoke of what I was, and I traveled in disguise. I did not want anyone to know where I came from, for that would bring fear. To know that I walked amongst them. But how better can we understand the people? And my father had instilled within me the awareness of what would happen if they found out. I didn't believe him. I made the mistake of eventually telling one of my friends. I have never seen so many people kneel so quickly. I have never seen my way of life change so swiftly. The fear. Fear that you don't have here. Which is good. Which is one of the reasons why we're here. The reason we're here is because of you. Actually.
Oh.
It's just you. The rest of it's incidental. We made a decision that we wouldn't have you die. The only way that that was going to happen was for us to leave. So we chose here. Now, my father knows, obviously, the Emperor. I was very upset to find out that he appointed my wife to be the ambassador. To this day, it upsets me. But it was part of the equation. It allowed this to be an acceptable outcome. And it was a lesson he was trying to teach me. The Emperor is a very intellectual man, much to the disappointment of almost everyone around him. They are looking for a warrior. He has not. Very likely he's been deposed already. If that's the case, we will be summoned back should they ever find me.
Well.
So, that doesn't really explain anything. So let's
Yes, why would I die?
Let's make it clear. Just so you know, 2 weeks old, left the can there by mistake. One I was drinking, that had something in it. Didn't happen. I'm moving on. But if I'm dead by the next stream, you all know why.
Nurgle sent a minion.
Totally. You're not supposed to know any of this until you're 30. So I'm going to give you the shortened version. Because you can get the better version when you're 30.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now some things that we don't tell anyone. Anyone. Except for our own family. Anyone means don't go telling your friends. Do you understand? Well, yeah. I'm going to tell you something you know already. But what leads on from it, you don't know. In the beginning, there was nothing. And I'm going back that far.
Okay.
He says, as then he ships over to Nipponese and stays there until I say otherwise. Till I say otherwise. And then he lifts his hand and a blob of darkness appears where his hand is. And it swirls and twists on its edges and moves off towards parchment. No. And then there was sound. Right in the middle of the darkness. Pinprick of light. Did you hear a single note? It was pure. It was certain. And it was quickly incandescent. Purity and incandescence given sudden and inexplicable form within nothing. And that was the beginning. And from one note came two, and from one light also came two, and then three, and then more. As light and sound shifted to colour and chord, and then lifted into new forms, and it spread. Now, this is something that is impossible for us to understand. I am no storyteller. I'm not going to sit here and attempt to do what they do in theatre. This is something I would prefer to watch. I have no great skill in this. It's why I draw some pictures for you so you can get an idea. But it quickly moves beyond anything I can show you, so I'm just going to moves his hand and it disappears. Because it moves to infinite light and infinite sound. A sound with no end and a light with no end until one day heaven knew it existed. Right in the very heart of heaven, where the very first note sounded, heaven woke up. And obviously, one of the very first things that you do when you realize that you are a thing is you name yourself. We all have different characters. I imagine you have named yourself many interesting and exciting new names. I know I have. I went by several names when I travelled. It is fair to say that heaven, when it named itself, was not perhaps as imaginative as some others might have been. It referred to itself as the incandescent sun at the august centre of heaven. That was its name. The incandescent sun at the august centre of heaven. Quite. Most importantly, that was the very first of the Dokikami, the very first unborn spirits. Spirits that did not come from another. Entities that had never been before they themselves willed themselves into existence. First of the gods, the very first of the gods. And soon, in this great infinity, more were not born, but came to be. In total, there were 9, including the first. And these great kami, great gods, were heaven. At this point, there was no earth. There was no opposite. There was no other side. There was merely everything. But in time, and it is not known exactly where it started, Earth was created. Now, this is where my story becomes very bad, I'm sorry to say, because I have received about 12 different versions.
Okay.
I don't know which one's true. I don't even know the beginning's true. But that beginning is almost universal. This part is where it gets more complicated. According to some, Earth created itself also, much like heaven. According to the next, Earth was a pearl stuck in an oyster that was all of heaven, born from a piece of grate that itself was born from nothing. And in this story, that Earth is as much a god as the heavens themselves. And yet another one, it was formed by the Dokukami, who pulled together what they were and created Earth as their counterpart. And yet another, only the incandescent sun created it, for it wished to have somewhere to lie. And yet another, it was all 9 who did this, for they wished to have somewhere to gather and meet and be able to speak and communicate. Because in infinity, there is no communication. Everything is all at once. But there was time. And they could breathe, and they could see, and they could feel, and they could create, which they could not do when they were in heaven, where it was already everything. I could go on. They're variations of the same tales. What's most important is that there was a division created between heavens and earth, and that the Dokukami liked and visited. The august center of heaven went to earth. The incandescent sun became mortal. Or at least as mortal as an incandescent sun can ever be. And walked the plane of earth. And there, the sun, the Dokukami, whatever else, had children. Because they could. And were born the first and the mightiest and the greatest of the kami themselves, the gods. The great gods of the air, of the mountains, of the seas. The most powerful of them. And they saw that their parents were bad. Because isn't that what children do? Because they were born within the realms of earth, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But there is no such thing for the Dokukami. They simply are. So they could never rise above them, replace them. They could never be anything but lesser. Ever. And so goes one tale that they rebelled. The tale says something quite different. But we'll get to that. Nothing matters as to the why. All that matters is to what happened. That there was a war. Now, what does all of this mean? It is so early in our existence. Let us now bring it down to the simple truths that I can say for certainty. In the Imperial Palace, he smiles. Oh, there is something that you know already. The great tree. That is connected to all trees. Connected through every root. Connected to every place. And carries within it all the powers of the Dokukami, all of whom have fallen to chaos. We don't talk about that bit very much. For the Dokukami seek to destroy the world. It is their intent and their purpose. It is interesting, here they have named their Dokukami with names like Akshri and Shaish. They've named them as magic, not realizing that there is intent behind them all. Or so we believe. Every one of their spells brings the end one step closer, because it comes from beyond. It is magic. And magic is pure chaos. And let us then bridge over to words that speak to our older stories, is from heaven and should never be on earth. And if you use the magic of heaven on earth, it changes earth to be more like heaven. One of our ancestors, of course. Our ancestor. Let's change tales one more time. One day when you're 30, you'll get the proper tale. And it won't come from me, it will come from the Emperor. God, I hope I'm not the Emperor. But actually, it's a horrific idea. You do not ask questions until I'm done.
Okay.
I am not a storyteller. It says, so I'm finding this very hard.
Pour him more tea.
I'm not going to start drinking, as you can see. A different tale. In the beginning of time, in the land of the incandescent sun, in Nippon, where the incandescent sun made her home, the war began. And this took the incandescent sun by surprise. The august center of heaven had no real interest in war and attempted to separate herself from it. But she did not want to return to heaven itself, for she loved her people. And her people were at the very heart of the world. They drove the great engine of life. The great engine of life that in turn powered heaven. I tell you, the story is quite different to the other, and some of its language and choices just simply don't match. That is the nature of old stories. Wait until you meet your great-grandmother. She has a different view. She was there.
Okay.
Strictly, she's not your great-grandmother, but if you call her anything else, she will be very upset. Very upset. You do not want to make her upset.
Okay.
Actually, truth be told, you don't even want to meet her. And it lie at the very heart of the engine of the world. And as the war begun, the entire place fell to chaos. All the people there of the incandescent sun fell. For traitors lay at the very heart. One traitor in particular, the rising sun himself, who was the leader of the people who lived there, and ultimately the founder of our line. Yeah, and I'm being quite blunt about that. This is not a lie. The founder of our line fell to chaos. And the founder of our line was already married to the incandescent sun, and they had been having children. And he betrayed her and bound her within the very tree that he was responsible for tending. Because she emanated magic. She was at the very heart of magic. There is a great machine in this world that she lay at the heart of. Because she is, it is hard to explain. She is a god. She is as much a thing as she is a person. She is a process. She is magic. or at least so say the family tales. What runs through my blood is certainly not what runs through everyone else's. That much is certain. I don't believe most of this. That's why I'm a terrible storyteller. I never listen to it. Father loves this. He writes down tale after tale himself. He gathers them all together. He's got scroll after scroll after scroll in the Imperial Palace of every single tale. He pores over them to try and understand what happened. He lies at the heart of what he thinks is a great machine that spans across the world. He calls it a machine. He believes the tree itself is the spiritual counterpart of a greater machine, lies at the heart of what magic is. And that the center of heaven, our great-great-grandmother, 20 generations back, goddess was trapped within it to keep magic in Earth because it suited their purpose for reasons I don't understand. And it caused magic to flood through the roots. And to this day, it still does. I'm told. Oh, what does this all have to do with anything? I'm getting to that. It's these roots that move towards all the gates. It's these roots that power the gates. The gates where you can move from the Shinkai through here into Earth, from heaven into Earth. Or at least the Shinkai is not heaven. It is the stepping point between. You have heaven and you have Earth. And then you have the Shinkai. It sits between, where you can speak to the heavenly divine and the divine can speak back. And you can visit if you wish. You've been there. And this is where it all gets frightfully complicated. I'm about to get to that. Why we came here. And he moves over to Reichspiel. Let's cut the bullshit. I really hate these stories. Maybe your mother should have done it. She refused to do it, though. Oh, but she should have done this. Oh, she loves telling stories. She'll fill it with prosaic poetry. She recites it. I don't have patience for that. I'd much rather just... I'm carrying swords for a reason.
I think I prefer yours if it makes it any better.
So, they fell. The whole place fell to chaos, and the great engine of the world fell to chaos, and demons walked the earth through every gate. There was a great network of gates, according to this story, that spread across the world. Its very heart was in Nippon, centered around the incandescent sun that allowed the kami to go any place they wished to go, anywhere. And at its very heart was the very heart of the kami themselves, the very first Doku kami. They all fell. All of them, except for the Doku kami herself, the original. Because she just stood separate. And the war began. And it is fair to say that Nippon fared very well if you were on the side of chaos, which posted itself as the side of the divine. They were heaven. And it was the war to cleanse the heavens of this filthy earth. Now, as to exactly how its creation came about, you can see why there's some confusion. Those who wish to destroy it, those who wish to keep it. But the children of the Doku Kami liked it. It is where they were born, so they fought back. Bitterly. Yeah, one day, one of those children, he says, one of those children, a fox. Let's call her Renald. Decided that she would try to slip in. And she danced because she thought that she might be able to free the incandescent sun itself. But she made a few mistakes along the way. After all, this was enemy territory, for all of Nippon had fallen. Consider it like the very worst of the Northern Gate at its worst. And in the center of that was its king, our ancestor. And she danced in with the intent of freeing the eternal sun, only to be confronted in her horror when she got there to find out that it was in fact herself, and she was looking in a mirror. And that the great fox lay at the very heart of it. She tricked herself into thinking she was merely fox spirit, which she found ironic, given everything that she chose to do. And she looked back at her own 9 tails and realized that each one of those tails were the tails of her. She says, and the very first, for she inhabited them all. And then she realized that she couldn't free herself because she was herself, and she was both free and not free. The only way to truly free herself was to free herself from her captor. And her captor was her lover. It's a complicated little tale. I've heard about 12 different versions of it. The one my sister tells is actually extraordinary. You'd enjoy it. She uses puppets. It's great. She used magic, obviously. So not magic. But she uses. It's impressive. Really good. You stuck with me. You're not 30, so that's all right. God, imagine Akim Emperor had to tell the later generations this. It would be terrible, wouldn't it? They'd be expecting something remarkable, and I just go. I hope that my sister would do it for me with puppets. It becomes a dance between her and what, as it turns out, is the first true god that was born without the influence of the Dokukami or the Dokukami's children. The first god born of the earth. Extraordinary when you think of what it means. This was the equivalent. Exactly the same as, indeed, that august center of heaven, but the earthly equivalent. And it did not know what it was, in the same way that the incandescent sun did not know what it was. It was the rising sun. The incandescent sun was on the other side, curled with her 9 tails. So apparently they had themselves a great dance, and I'm just going to cut it down because you don't want the details because you're my daughter, but there was a lot of seduction involved. And she wins, and she teases him away from where he was. And then locks him deep in the heart of more sleep. Yep, more sleep. I'm going to go there. So, it would have been so much better if you'd heard all of the push and the pull that led to that, because she trapped him there, got him to go up there. They were going to have themselves a dinner up on Mosley. The incandescent sun, as it turns out, didn't first, according to this tale, arrive in Nippon. That is merely where she chose to lay. She first arrived on Manslip. Manslip possibly is her. It's difficult to be certain. Different tales say different things. She's also trapped in the tree down below because she's never been freed. But she's also like a fox spinning around, and she's also a moon. I don't understand it. And this is supposedly my family. Yeah, that
Okay.
When my father told me, it was full of, well. And then, and I did at the end of it speak to my sister and say, was that just nonsense? All of it, did any of it make sense to you? She was horrified. It's no surprise I'm the one that ran away. Put it that way. moons and foxes and who can say what's what.
Sounds
So
very Ranelden.
just as he had trapped her within the tree, she trapped him within the moon. Oh, it sounds very divine, doesn't it? And in that trapping, the war swiftly came to an end because the engine of the world had shifted and the great heart of the tree could beat with only the august center of heaven, not what was influencing it. Or something. There was a war or something as well. I forget. So one day you'll hear this tale properly and you'll be, Father. But it's the important details that matter. The top stuff, yes?
Sure.
Yeah, well, we're getting to the point. As part of that war, one of their children, who would become the first emperor of Nippon, he reconquered Nippon. He cleared out the demons. He moved up to the gates. He closed all the gates, and the gates were now pulsing free with the energies that were coming from the divine sun at the heart of it that had been captured. And it became clear that if she came free of it, it would be tainted forever. So she had to stay at the very heart, could not leave. And that the spirits themselves of the land, the kami, they had to be tended. It was originally the Doku kami who were supposed to tend their own children, but they obviously rebelled. So their children went wild. Many of them fell to their parents and their desire to destroy the world. Others respected the world. And that is where we begin to get to the very heart of the Imperial Way. Who we are, what we do. The old way. Where we respect the spirits to ensure that they do not go wild and try to tear apart reality itself. The very spirits that come through the gates, and we can now skip a lot because some of those gates have fallen, as you know. Some of those gates have fallen to chaos as all the spirits fell for one reason or another. One very famously to be known. Others have been closed because there are those who believe that we should simply close off the Shinkai so they can never touch again Earth. Close the gates, not realizing the spiritual dangers involved with this. Your mother believes this to her heart. And she was working on that when she and I first met. And this continued on for some time. You happened to be 6 years old when she decided to close the gate. Without my permission, I would like to make clear. And right in the very heart of the Moon Festival, she intended to trap all of the spirits here on Earth so that they could be better used. Now, I'm going to use very firm, switches over to Imperial language, Reichspiel. Local language, do you understand what she is? Demonologist, necromancer, the worst examples of what they consider to be the foulest magics, which is obviously what you hunt, he says in Reichspiel. And why I'm so proud of you, he switches back to Nippon, and that one was for the spies. He says, because that is what your mother is. Now, that is not how they are. They consider themselves to be monks, centered, using spirits for their own ends. They consider themselves to be pure, which is possibly why I fell for her in the first place. It was a bit of a mistake, because she isn't. Now, that then leads to what is pure and why are you impure, and what happened when you were 6 years old and you met a fox, and why did we flee? Getting there.
Okay.
We're almost there, in fact. Tea. Says he slips some tea. The Imperial family have the blood of gods running through them. We are the children of the gods themselves, quite mortal, in our own immortal way. But we are born of earth, which means we are mortal. But our ultimate sire on one side is chaos, and on the other side, heaven. There are some stories that claim they're both the same thing. The first emperor, their child, brought it all back to harmony. And by that, he returned the earth to earth and pushed out the divine, so that none of the kami could ever live here again. They would always be just beyond the gates, always present, always there, felt, but not coming through anymore. The great kami, the oldest, the direct children of the Doku kami, he could not influence them, but all the rest were pushed beyond, and they would come through and visit on special days. But they didn't realize there was going to be problems. For example, up in the moon, the great love, whether he wants revenge or just to meet his old wife, he comes down twice a year in an attempt to touch his wife in the tree. They call it Geheimstag. It is nothing more than your ultimate grandfather seeking to find his wife for revenge or love, who can say which.
It's awful down here.
Well, I told you, he's bad. That is your demonic blood. Then on the other side, you've got your mother, ultimate grandmother. She also tries to rise up, and when she does so, to try and see him or fight against him or push him away, who can say what? Magic floods through all the roots. Life rises, and that magic in turn floods the world. It is not Morsleep that brings the magic, it is the mother. Some say she is fighting Morsleep. Some say it is the opposite. The gates that have fallen, they fill with demons when Morsleep comes down, the children of the first. It's all frightfully complicated. I can tell you what certainly is true. Every time Morsleep is full, they come out of the gate. I have been there, and I have fought them. And then Morsleep waxes and wanes and waxes and wanes. It is our duty to fight them and send them back, for we are of demonic blood and can sense them coming. But we're also of divine blood, so balances out, yes? Keeping that balance within ourselves is essential, because we are creatures of earth, which means that balance is the denial of heaven, the denial of chaos. You understand? This is the part that's important.
Denial of...
Balance is not equal measure, because you are not a creature of heaven. You are a creature of earth. Balance means denying heaven, for all heaven can be tempting and might wear an innocent guise like a fox. So, 20 generations later, well, you're 20th. Here we are. We've had one. We're on Emperor number 18 now. Most of the rest of them have died, facing off against chaos, trying to keep balance. Magic's flooding through the world. It's all our fault. He smiles. Very gates themselves are our creation. They were built by our ancestors at the orders of the great Kami. Or at least, so I was told. Every gate that existed here were built by us, powered by the roots of the world, which are life itself. Pretty simple, yeah? He says, because I don't understand it.
Can I ask questions now?
Oh, no. We've got this fox to cover yet. Why we had to leave?
Yes.
Now you can ask, and then you can ask your questions, and I'll say to most of them, I don't know.
Okay.
So your mother is the great intellect behind all of this. She sensed that the gate where we were was about to fall. The very gate where we were. The festival was happening, and she was convinced it was going to fall. I disagreed. Turns out she was right. There had been cults in the city. They were looking to cause the gate to collapse, and she was the one who was responsible for moving forward to doing something that was deeply illegal and closing that gate. The fox escaped. Several others escaped as well. The fox attached itself to you. I didn't get to the bit about the whole, corruption thing. Let's get to that. So many different things. So the imperial family are only allowed to marry pure people. I'd say, well, what's a pure person then? That is someone who spent their entire life denying heaven and embracing earth. Someone who is absolutely in tune with earth. Because they can ensure that whatever birth that they give forth or are responsible for with the imperial line will not cause make a demon. And that's happened. In the past, you tend to find that we are mortal, we are imperfect creatures. We choose lovers that are perhaps not the best for us. Do not think that this has not occurred in the past with some of your ancestors. It has, somewhat famously, with, well, the rising sun himself, and the most famous of our emperors, in fact, the divine emperor himself. Well, he had maybe 50, 60 children in his time, and of those, 40 were born as mortal demons. As impure as we are supposed to be pure. I'll be honest, I never felt particularly pure, but a lot better than some of them. Sadly, it is our fate as we grow older and chaos slowly but surely infiltrates our souls for us to change also. We're never going to die, not unless we are literally killed. The divine empress lives on to this day. She abdicated. Just in case she's listening, your great-grandmother, I hope she's not listening. Your great-grandmother, she lives on also. She takes the form of a child. It's her preference. She fights at the gates every year. Terrifying, actually terrifying. The first time I met her, I just prostrated myself and hoped. But she looks noble, at least. Some of the shrines where our relatives lie, some of them are like giants. Some of them are twisted, strange creatures, and some of them have escaped the pond. They should never have left. And they are very bad, you may. And I use the you on purpose. This is best to have a guise of some sort sometimes. So you were born from your mother, who I fell in love with. I shouldn't have had a child with. She chose to keep the child. I didn't realize. You were born. I decided to marry her because I'm an idiot. Father, who's actually quite romantic, let it stand, caused a massive problem. And then the shogunate rose up. The three of them have had civil war, largely because of me. So not being in the pond was probably a good idea. Then my wife decided that she was going to close one of the great Dokukami gates. I haven't gone into that. Bad, literally closing off one of the gates completely forever because she was convinced that it was going to fall, which it turns out she was right. No one else believes her, though, obviously. So we were in a bad place already. And then obviously you who were born of someone who was not purified, which means that you might actually fall at any point. We couldn't be certain that wasn't going to be the case. I couldn't believe it. You were far too pretty and cute. How could you ever? Your mother actually convinced me that we shouldn't kill you. Actually, that's not true. The emperor convinced me. He liked you. He anointed you with his blood and said you were pure and said anyone who stood against him would suffer his wrath. Hence the civil war, which we're avoiding. And then we were quite convinced of everything. We'd moved to the south, beyond the front lines. And we were not under our real names. No one knew who I was. It was quite marvelous. I quite enjoyed it. We were making decisions as to what to do next. And then your mother decided she was going to close the gate. And she didn't tell me. And she did what we were supposed to do. And she proved that our family was based on a lie. Only the Imperial family can pacify any of the great kami and any of the great spirits and bind them back into what they are, what they should be when they are here on Earth. They should be at one with nature, not rebelling against it. And she did it. And she turned all of the demons that were going to come through into spirits, friendly spirits of the Shinkai. And they closed the gate permanently, which was bad, caused problems. Then one of those extremely powerful creatures that was going to destroy that section of Nippon bound itself to you. Because you were born of impure blood, which is true. And you should have been, you were born from someone who had been completely purified. It would never have happened. It's entirely my fault. So we didn't know what to do. So I went to my father. We went north and we said, we've got a problem. We didn't mention you. We've closed this gate. This is why we've closed the gate. This is what we think has happened. We really should go off and study this further. We've spun some rather pathetic lies about trying to investigate it further. Come here where we've got a spiritually dead land, where the spirits themselves don't tour and don't turn to demons as they move out of balance. And we came here. The old ambassador thing. He punished me, of course. I'm not the ambassador. But let's be honest, it's not my character. I would have made a very poor ambassador. Not that I ever told your mother that. Not that I would tell your mother that, but here we are. So all of that means that you got yourself attached to a fox that we couldn't do anything about. And it was bound to what it was. Your mother did everything she could to keep it the way that it was. And it recently stopped when politics came very bad here and it started to show its true leanings again. Now, if we turn local, that means you have your soul is tied directly through to the greater power of, and it's now moving out of balance. And in turn, it will try to move you out of balance. But at your very heart lies your ultimate grandmother. She who tricked the world into existence, according to some tales, tricked the other Dokukami into creating the pearl, tricked those who fell into the moon, tricked all of heaven into allowing Earth to continue. And she who still lies at the very heart of a tree, supposedly, thousands of miles away from here on the other side of the world. Therein lies the ultimate expression of what's going on. Magic is dangerous. That I can say for certain. And what you do, darling, is the same as what I do. Not magic. Smiles. Oh, you've taken to the local customs. I accept that. It's quite impressive, by the way. But it's only a fraction of what you're going to be able to do.
I was going to ask about that. There's been a lot of talk about it. They have a name for it here for the Sigmarites, the Sigmarian heresy.
See, I don't understand what's going on here, if I'm honest. I'm not a philosopher. Leave this to your mother. She understands this. The real reason she's here is she's studying what they call priests. Those who are actually fighting the war the way it should be fought.
Which I've gone and made myself one.
You always were one.
Yes.
You always were one. Those who use the captured essence of the gods.
But
the kami,
how is that different from?
because it's made pure by the roots of the world, which are being slowly but surely sullied.
So that's the difference.
It's not magic. It's the pure essence of she who lies at the very heart of everything, filtered through I don't know what. It's powerful, and you can be trained in it. If you do the correct forms, you can make it come to pass. If you are close enough to one of the deities, supposedly, I don't understand it. Look. Do I need to understand how my muscles work to run? No, but I run really fast. I run really, really fast. I just know I need to run a lot to be able to run faster. The more I practice running, the faster I can run. Do I understand how any of my body works? No. Do I understand how my heart works, my liver, my various component parts? I have no understanding at all. Your mother, she understands the magical nature of people and how it's not magical or is. She understands how flows and things that she talks about works. But trying to talk to her sometimes is like trying to talk to a bloody wall. She's a rubric, a puzzle, and she's annoying. Annoying. But do be aware, you're going to be different to everyone else. You just are. It's part of what you are. And I don't just mean that you're going to express differently. Your emotions are different. Your heart is different. Your life is different. You're going to see others getting jealous about petty and caught up in relationships that to them are everything, that to you are going to feel foolish often. Often. The only person I have met in all my life that really understood me, well, beyond my own family, obviously, they don't count.
Uh-huh.
The only one who ever understood me was an elf I met once. Only one of them. He was a sailor. I met him 42 years ago. And he was passing through port. And he claimed to be, at the time, 200 years old. And he was fascinated as to who I was, because I made the mistake of showing off something. And he traveled far and wide. So he came to the conclusion that I was some sort of local priest, because that is what he believed I was, because he had been to places like here. And in my foolishness, mostly ignorance, I was like, no, don't be silly. I was in my free period. And by that, I mean I had slipped free and thought I was incredibly clever and had managed to go and find my own way in life. All my freedoms, which my family were all about ensuring that I understood the importance of free will, the consequences of my actions, because one day I would be given a choice, and if I didn't make the correct choice, I would fall as a living demon. That is your potential future as well, but you don't have what I have, because I was weak and your mother was weak. Now you might be as free as I am, but you might be destined towards hell if everyone is correct. Except for my father.
Well, I feel like I made such a choice quite recently, actually.
Oh, you'll feel it. You feel it, don't you? Feels in there. You feel it. You know. Yeah, that's your grandmother. Well, all the way up there somewhere.
She comes to me as a very ugly cat.
I don't think that's her. That'll be someone else.
Whoever she sends.
That might be what they call Ronald. It might be something else. Great spirits, kami. I don't understand how what they do matches what we do. I don't actually understand what we do. I'm supposed to be this great epitome, this figure of it. But between you and me, I have no idea what's going on. The experts keep on telling me what I am. And there is no one who tries to tell me what I am more than my own little bodyguard. Which I think you were on the receiving end of it at some point.
Yes.
Yes.
I have 2 questions.
Oh, only 2. Then I think I may have done well.
Well, there's smaller ones, but the main ones. One is, a lot of these stories you've told me I heard already from the elf in my party.
Sea elves.
But in her stories, they were the ones who did all those things.
Maybe they were.
But then recently, a lot of, I think this is just local ignorance, but people have been thinking that I am a baby elf.
No, not at all. You'll find that there's a great deal of inherent racism where people see something that's a different shape and they presume it's related to the other thing with a different shape. And as ridiculous as this is, it boils down to one thing. Just one. That. Just that. We interbreed with humanity because we're human.
Yeah.
The very first one of us was human. Human, bred with God. The human, by this point, had elevated to something else. That I know for as much as I can know anything. It was human. We are human. We are creatures of earth. And we have heaven within us, but we are creatures of earth. And sadly for us, our line was created after he fell. And he became an earthly god. But a human nonetheless. We are human. We're just a different set of humans to them, I suppose. Yeah. Ridiculous. The only reason this elf that I met understood me in any way, shape, or form at all was because morally he was as bankrupt as anyone I think I'd met in my life. And that moral bankruptcy was my basic level. And he viewed himself as someone with very little in the way of mores or morals as understood by others. But what he was saying is almost for him an attempt at, it almost felt like rebellion and deviance. For me, it just felt, well, what's the problem with any of this? This just seems normal. I don't understand. But he and I got on very well. Very well. Very well. Let's not talk about that.
I don't think I'm allowed to speak to the elves that travel on the sea. I met their leader in Marienburg. He didn't like me.
I'd be wary of anyone who claims to be a leader of anything. Nothing's a monolithic block in this world. That's something I've learned. But in my time, I just am not understood by anyone. Literally no one I meet. Everything I do is a pretense. It's a lie. Everything I say, everything I am. Your mother knows this. She knows that I lie to her all the time to make her happy. I do. All the time. I'm loyal to her because it makes her happy. Not because I feel any need to be loyal or that I think it has any inherent worth. I don't. She'll die before me. Long, long before me. If I am not brought down in battle, I will be dead 100, 200, 300 years on a battlefield somewhere else, perhaps. But I'm not going to die of old age. Very unlikely. My mother's blood in me. The same is probably going to be the case for you, but it thins with every generation. At least that's what they say. The oldest of us, well, they're old. And many would say that we are demons. We're not.
Well.
Your mother is not a necromancer. Your mother is not a demonologist. But by the terms as they're understood here, she's not only a necromancer, she's effectively dead herself. Such is the nature of the spells that she has wrought. But they're not, strictly speaking, even spells.
So, you met with Margrethe von Wittgenstein.
His face is calm, that empty face that you hate.
She's in our party. We've spoken about it. From what I understand of what she does, isn't it quite similar?
Your mother went to meet her once. To understand. She'd learned about it about 5 years ago, what was going on in Wittgenstein? Absolutely horrific.
It is.
Truly awful. But again, I didn't care. I'd seen worse. Because I don't care. I'm just repeating what she said. I had to dial her back. She was going to kill them all. I had to hold her back.
Wow.
Because at the heart of it, there was something that was at least related. Not the same. But I find it interesting. She ultimately was expressing everything through magic, where your mother does not.
Mm.
She expresses it through the very power of nature itself, I suppose. So it was very different. But interestingly, the initial starting point was not. You're a grown woman. Says your mother and her had a relationship because your mother was interested in understanding how she became what she became.
Mm-hmm.
She always asks me as if I care. I don't. Why should I care what bodies do? What difference does it make? It makes none. They're just bodies writhing around. Earthly concerns are honestly not a concern of mine. For all I don't understand it all, I can say one thing for certain. People are strange. I just don't get them. Any of them. None of them makes sense to me. But it's very easy to pretend to be like them. I mean, why do you think there's so much tradition around our family? It's to hide the fact we're nothing like them. Any of them. We have to wrap ourselves around with tradition to ensure that no one realizes that we are at heart unstable, almost, and he switches to Reichspiel, like demonic entities that should be destroyed. He says, absolutely destroyed by good people like yourself. And then flips back to Nipponese. Like that. Because if they saw us for what we are, they would hunt us. And they did. And the initial points, right at the very beginning, about, I'll give you a history lesson at some point, but the hunt for the Imperial line, some 4,000 years ago, they were bloody. Tradition brings safety. It means that we can only act within a certain parameter. And the reason that we have our veils is because often, in time, we begin to show our origins. We hide behind screens so that we can continue to rule.
But you stopped teaching me those traditions.
Well, what's the point? You're not going to be going back anytime soon. And if you did, we could teach them to you properly. You're far better learning how to fit in here. We wanted to see what would happen. Without all the traditions wrapped up around really you. Your sister can worry about that. She was obsessed with it.
Well, that's true. But that brings me to my other
That's why she went back.
That brings me to my other questions. How you said, you run a lot and become faster at running. But if I don't know if I don't know that running exists as a concept, how am I supposed to practice it?
I don't know. How do you do it? How did you end up in this funny little cult of a magpie god? How did you end up dominating it, rising up within it, at the age of only 16, having men who were notorious murderers and thieves bowing before you, listening to your word like it somehow had any merit, because the very god's blood lies within you, Ume.
I just thought
you are who you are. You're as incapable of not being you as I am of being me. You're incapable of not running as any other antelope with legs. Animals aren't taught to do anything. They just go. And that is all we are. We are creatures of the earth. And creatures of the earth do not need to be taught how to do most of what they do. It comes. It's instinctually within you. Don't worry about it. If you want to learn how to make a horseshoe, that's different. That's nothing to do with what's in your blood. I mean, horseshoes, that's a development of humanity. They make things. Humans are very fascinating the way they make everything. We don't need horseshoes. We don't even need horses. Well, maybe we don't. I mean, I can fly. Not that I do it very often. It makes people very upset.
The wizards here fly, so
Well, exactly, but they use magic, and I don't. Magic destroys the world. But what else are they going to do? The world itself will destroy them. It's an interesting conundrum. Your mother has opinions on it. I'll admit I have few.
I recently met what they would call here a demon.
That's why I'm here, although I'm beginning to think that the reason I'm here is not the reason I'm here. So I don't like thinking. Let's start with that one. I thought demon's blood had been spilt on you, which made you potentially moving out of balance. That's what I thought. I was pretty convinced that was the case. Why had you drink the tea? It's why I checked the tea.
Oh, what did it say? I didn't recognize that character.
It just, of course you didn't. It just said that, you had been touched by great spiritual energy and it was running through you at the moment. And I thought it was probably the demon, although now that you were earlier on in our conversation talking about some great gate or another, perhaps it was that. That would make sense. Your proximity to that would chime with your blood. It's a little bit like a sound. You are, after all, if we go by the stories, nothing more than an expression of a perfect sound, the perfect color, the perfect light, the perfect everything. And when you get something that moves in the same motion, that it harmonizes, it resonates, it lies within you for a while.
It's painful.
Yes, well, you get used to it. It says, when you go to the gates, when Mosleb is high, that's when you feel the pain. That's when you realize the urgency of what you have to do. Everyone else, anyone else that goes there, they will fall. There is so much dark energies pouring forth from those gates, they will fall, but we are made of the same stuff. We don't fall. Or we might change. Because that is the nature of what is us. And if we change too much, then we have to withdraw from society and sit behind a veil until even that is not enough. And then we abdicate. And some of us might sleep. Some of us might continue. Those who still at least look human, they will stay in the court. The rest will probably withdraw to a shrine, where they will be tended by very pure individuals to ensure that they stay pure. And occasionally, when it gets very bad, they will be awakened. And they will return, living avatars of the very gods themselves, to slay. But that's your aunts and uncles.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have nightmares of some of the ones that I did meet when I was a baby.
I remember meeting my great uncle. He opened an eye. He had 14 of them. And he just sat in his shrine. He's almost 100 foot tall. And that is what he had become, because he had warred so often with them. And he is meditating to ensure his soul never falls to disharmony. He is tended by those who ensure he never falls to disharmony. The monks surround him with harmonious tunes to ensure that he never falls.
But do you just know?
Know what?
That you haven't fallen?
Oh, you'd know. You'd know.
Okay.
I know. I know. You haven't.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Or is it all a trick?
That is the problem of our entire family. We're born of trickery.
It is
And we lie to everyone. We tell them all that we are pure. The pure children of the gods. But we are the gods and demons made manifest. And the great lie of our people is at the very heart of who we are is a fallen civilization. And we know that we were not alone in this. According to your father, he is a great scholar, the Emperor. All humanity fell. All of it. They all went to war with everyone else. They are the reason that the world almost fell. Humanity. And according to, it may be perhaps a biased view, but according to the Emperor, they were at the head of it. And that is what was sealed away. Literally were the ones who were trying to bring the war to a close, to wipe out everything so they could return to heaven. That is how they saw it. They were returning to heaven.
In the place where you can't communicate or feel, or
Perhaps they did not like the existence that they had. I'll be honest, most of the people I meet, their lives seem craven and terrible. I can understand why they might not want to exist the way they exist. If I am being relative, again, I understand that it is not the attitude I'm supposed to take with one's own doctor. He says, but I like living. Living is marvelous. Eating is great. Food is just marvelous. I like food. I like different foods, actually. I like foods I don't like. Ones that smell strange and have an odd texture, the way it goes down your throat. I'm not going to discuss parts that might make you feel uncomfortable because I like those as well. In so many different ways. And I'm dedicated to your mother because in time she'll be dead. And it just gives me time to think about it. It does. I don't care that much, but I like experience. That's what I like. And I understand not wanting to lose that. The idea of sitting like in some shrine, experiencing nothing, that's as good as death to me.
I agree.
When my father, the emperor, when he offered for me to come here, I didn't need to go toe-to-toe with demons every year. Twice a year at that. I've been doing that at that point for 15 years. And every single time you go, there is a chance that something will go wrong. Because everyone that goes with you will die. And only the imperial family survives. The rest are there to support them and to ensure they can drive them back. They won't live. And those who do live, they're put away. They can't continue on with everyone else. I was happy not to do that. Very happy not to do that.
That sounds awful.
Well, it is. Fortunately, you bound yourself to a demon by mistake. We had to leave because they would have killed you because of what it represented.
That's the part I'm confused by. You said, that I'm bound to a spirit that looks like a fox, but then you talked about the fox in the story is
Oh, right. So, are you me? Am I you? But we're both human. That's extraordinary, Ume. Even with my basic understanding of philosophy, I can understand the concept of two things having similar forms. Now, here's something that might astound you. And this is something that to this day still surprises me. Just yesterday, I met a man called Stefan. 2 years earlier, I met a different man called Stefan. He was different. And I said to him, are you Stefan, the same Stefan that I met down in Kemperbad? And he said, I've never been to Kemperbad. And I said, how can that possibly be the case? Your name's Stefan. Surely you are some conceptual form of the very essence of Stefan. And, well, no, he wasn't. Let's complicate it if you wish. Our grandmother was trapped in the very heart of everything that had gone wrong and was as fallen as anything else. It's not as simple as black and white. It's harmony, disunity and unity, chaos and order, heaven and earth. And if mother can fall, she always has. They were lovers at the heart of chaos. And she wasn't trapped in the tree. And she freed herself from that by sneaking in past everything else to confront herself and then persuade herself to put him in a moon. None of it makes sense, Ume. Stop trying to make sense of it in a very literal sense. These are heavenly creatures. They are heavenly entities. They are not earthly entities. And if you try to think of them as earthly entities that work by earthly rules, you will become human. You will become like them. You will start thinking like them. which you're welcome to do. I mean, it's your own life. You'll be proven wrong.
Well, I don't really know.
Anything? No, neither do I.
Yeah.
He says, I don't understand it. I just understand it. Your mother claims to understand everything. But I would argue that between us, she's the worst to talk to because she's all certainty and purity and purpose. She knows exactly what she needs to do. She intends to close every single last gate, every one of them. She intends to trap all of the entities of heaven into physical earthly forms that they cannot escape from. And she intends to cleanse magic from the world. I counted. Isn't this magic the very essence of who we are? How we exist? But she believes it's not. She speaks with such certainty, it's sometimes painful.
Yeah, we passed through places where what they call the green wind, is very.
Oh, they've got names for all the winds and things. Yes.
And there was a woman who worshipped what she called the mother, I'm pretty sure, and she also lived for a very long time, and her son died and then came back. It was a very odd place.
Look, everything on the material plane can be immortal. It's just stuff. We're just stuff. And that stuff can be reordered in different ways. And it works by a particular set of rules. And as gods, which is how my aunt likes to refer to us, we can just reorganize that at will.
So what are your thoughts on Sigmar?
It's a fascinating subject, really. I've talked to quite a few Sigmarites, but obviously through our veil of, well, there's something you can't say to them. We'd be right at the very top of the witch hunter list if I said anything similar to what I've just discussed with you, as I think you can understand. I don't need to explain it to you because I know you're sharp, I know you're bright, and I know you're not stupid. They are often blinded with their own views, and that blindness means that it's impossible to discuss it with them. So you have to instead cagely engage and ask them questions and just shut up and let them talk. And then as they talk, you ask a question or two, and ultimately, I have no idea. I really have no idea. It's fascinating. The whole subject's fascinating. And perhaps he's tapped into something. Perhaps he's another material god. Perhaps he is like our grandmother, for want of a better way of describing it, or more, our grandfather. He is someone who has effectively found how to what is it? I spoke to a Myrmidon once. She used language, ascend, to become a material something, to reach divinity through earth rather than heaven. Although, according to their tales, he went to heaven. So perhaps it's something else.
Through the flame here as well.
Possibly. Maybe he just simply went through the Shinkai. Maybe something else came back. Maybe it was never Sigmar after all. And what returned was a great spirit instead. Yeah. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I can make as many answers to this as you can pose questions. He might literally just be a man who has become a god. I mean, that's ultimately what our grandfather did. If he can do it, why can't anyone else?
And the ones who pretended to be holy but instead used magic as well, that's something that's come up. It's been a very eye-opening journey.
Oh, your eyes will open further. It'll come. It's inevitable. You're drawn to trouble. You're drawn to magic. You're drawn to the divine. I got in the very heart of war and caused one. I caused a civil war. But then my father ended one by becoming emperor. And his mother ended one by becoming empress.
Chaos with a small c?
No. We are heavenly creatures. And we bring heaven to the divine realm. Earthly realm.
The earthly. Oh, yes.
Yes, we bring heaven to the earthly realm, and that's that.
Tree root prayers.
Yes, you can put it that way. It's more of a fundamental connection, I would say, but perhaps you've got it right and I've got it wrong. I don't. I've been running for longer than you.
Is it just something you feel?
Yep.
I did once manage to cut a tree with my fan.
Did you? Huh. You didn't tell me you did that. You did it with a fan. I trust he was there.
Yes.
You know, he's in love with you.
What?
Silly human.
He's been very mean to me.
Isn't that proof of anything?
Mm.
Yes, he's been in love with you for inappropriate times as far as most humans judge things. You represent everything that he is concerned about about the Imperial line. You are a bruise that he is like touches, makes him feel sore. You must have been able to realize that he was acting deeply out of character when he was alone with you. That was his expression. Effectively, what he was saying is, I love you, I love you, I love you. I don't know how to cope with this. How do I cope with this? When you disappeared, he turned into a drunk.
Good.
I actually confronted him about it. I said it directly. Get my daughter out of your mind. He was horrified. Immediately turned to drink.
Is he all right?
Oh, no. He's human. He'll never be all right. I don't understand how they work, personally. I've given up actually trying to mollify or coddle them because I'll get it wrong. I'll say something, they'll take it with extreme offense. And I'll have said it out of what I consider to be good-natured.
I don't know. I thought he was in love with you, and he turned to drink because you went missing.
No, quite the opposite. He despises me with a passion that only matches the incandescent burning of our ultimate ancestor. Largely because he is blood sworn to me for the rest of his existence, and he has absolutely no way to escape me. I mean, his honor and his duty demands that he loves me, which, if anything, makes him hate me even more. As I say, humans, complicated creatures, they can't just get on with things. Everything has to be complicated.
But what I've learned is I should probably not have any children with any of these people because the outcome might be horrible.
Just don't do it.
Okay.
You've got it much easier. Much, much easier. You're a woman. You can control these things much better than I can.
Am I?
Why do you think abstention is my way of life here? If I was back there, no one would come near me. They'd be terrified of me.
Sure.
Here, no one's terrified of me. I get offers every other day. And if you're drunk, it's sometimes hard to say no. So I just don't get involved with it. I suggest they've got certain roots and herbs and similar. They've got a name for it.
It's fine.
Lassie something or another. Use that. Just drink it every day. He says. Then you don't have any problems at all. Just make it your daily drink.
I got the birds and the beanstalk from my divine father.
Just drink it every day. You'll be fine.
Yes. Well, you know. I don't know what my life is going to be like.
Be really careful because they get very jealous. Really jealous.
Depends who you
want. No. Never met one that doesn't. Oh, they pretend. And they might pretend for years. Actual years. And then it just comes gushing out. And you're left going, but you said! I thought we understood! And then they're all, no, I take it back, but the dam is burst, the water is flowing, the villages have been flushed away. Not once. Maybe I've been unlucky.
I think you'd get along with the elf in my party. She's my...
elves are all right. They've got this morality, which is quite different to humans. So you can... They're all so childish. You say one thing wrong and they start weeping. You say another thing wrong and they get angry. And I'm not the most emotional man. Most of my emotions they're feigned. I mean, emotions are by my very nature dangerous anyway. So a lot of my early life was spent trying to control them. Turned out, didn't make any difference. I didn't help much of them in the first place. The Emperor, he's a great believer in meditation. He thinks that it cleanses the soul and brings one closer to harmony.
I tried it the other day, and instead I had a vision of someone standing on a very big spider.
That probably was the spider. So was it a spider or was it something else?
Pretty sure it was a spider.
I only say because your great uncle, he lives in a. It's a spider shrine, and he lies at the heart of it.
A spider shrine?
Yeah,
But why?
because they worship him. He looks like a spider.
Oh. There was this human who was treating, I think it was a spider, like as if it was their child. It was like a human baby.
Oh, that just sounds like a mutant.
Yes. Well, I do wonder, you know.
I once rode my great-grandfather into war.
Maybe I had a vision of you.
No, he wasn't a spider.
Oh, okay.
No. He looks more like
I cannot.
He looks more like a six-limbed horse.
Six-limbed horse.
Yes, he's been fighting the Northern Gate for almost 2,000 years. And again, he's not actually my great-grandfather. It's his preference. He woke up when I was 32, and he chose me.
Right.
Extraordinary. Yeah, the things you learn when you go north, I don't recommend it.
The main thing, though, is that the demon I spoke to said that their ultimate plan is to release our great-grandfather, our ancestor, from more sleep. And that's when the end time will come.
Oh, I think you probably need the permission of our great-grandmother.
But if the coup happens in the pond and they get to our tree and make a fall again or something,
I don't know.
Well, I thought you should know.
He says, I don't really care.
But what about your honor and duty, father?
That's for everyone else. Literally everyone else. Your mother cares about that stuff. She was brought up with it. I was brought up by my father. You're told he didn't care about any of it.
I can see why he's not popular.
Oh, no, he's not popular at all. He's a scholar. He, how did he put it? The people are just going to have to accept who I am. I will not have the Imperial line debase itself for no reason again. He considers everything that the Imperial line does through tradition to be debasement. I mean, it's there for a good reason. I said it to him. I think it's there for a good reason, Father. I mean, ultimately, he banished me, I suppose. Look where I am.
I guess so.
Oh, no one else says a word to him otherwise. I was the only one that actually said any truth to him. Obviously, your mother agrees with him and disagrees with me. Not frightfully complicated, really. He says, I don't care. But I'm glad to hear that you're here. I mean, it was inevitable. Obviously, your mother said nothing at all, very particular.
Well, I mean, she allowed it, so.
Well, she wanted it to happen. Yeah, so maybe you'll be the one that'll figure it all out. I know I won't.
Well, I have a lot to figure out, including myself.
Oh, that'll come. Don't worry about it. I didn't. I recommend a good few years as Ronin, just wandering around, getting involved in war, accidentally causing an entire civil war that almost brings down an complete nation to his knees.
I think I already started that one.
Yeah, well, see? Isn't that what I was discussing? It's inevitable. You're going to be at the very heart of it. I was at the heart of it. I mean, I suppose I'm at the heart of it here. They tried to kill me. They tried to kill, actually, your mother because they thought that she was me. Which is actually hilarious. Because she is so much better than I am when it comes to this sort of thing. If somebody had come at me with the way they came at her, I'd have probably died.
Oh.
I'm not so good with magic.
Hmm.
Not personally. I'm just not.
Do you think if I let Mother know that I wanted to learn her ways, she would be pleased enough to send me somebody?
Well, then you'll be going down a route that I don't think the Imperial family would like one bit. Not that I'm against that. Just be aware that you'll be going down the route of magic.
I don't
Magic.
I don't necessarily
That which
want
brings
that.
the world to an end.
I like the way I do things now. I don't want to change that, but I do think that
You would change it fundamentally and you would never be the same again. Are you sure you want to do that?
no, I just want to understand. I just don't.
Understanding is not the same as doing. I mean, one can watch a fox, but it doesn't want us to be a fox. You can tickle it underneath its chin and listen to it paw, but you don't actually have to gamble through the trees like you're a...
It's a bad example, Father. I've been a fox, so...
No, you haven't been a fox.
I've seen through the eyes of a
You've
fox.
seen through the eyes of a fox. You've experienced it, but you haven't been it.
That's
It is
very
quite different. And that is fundamentally the difference that we're discussing here. You are saying, I want to be the fox. I don't want to be the one that can ride foxes. That is a different situation, you must admit.
Yes, it is.
There we go. So either dismiss that from your mind or dwell upon it and decide that you want to go against, I don't know, 10,000 years worth of family tradition. Tradition means so much to me, after all. I'm on the other side of the world, utterly appalled and stunned at what I see on an almost daily basis.
Okay, so I will just live my life and...
Now you'll be summoned back home eventually. I was. I had a good 20 years. Free will is important. One day you'll learn it, you'll understand it, and you'll realize that you need to return home. It'll come. I did.
Okay.
Maybe I just never have. I mean, that might be the truth. I might be in the same place as you, may I be honest? I might still be wandering around, not sure whether I should go home or not. I don't understand any of it, really. Maybe you need someone like my wife. Go find your own wife, your own husband, your own partner, maybe 5 of them, I don't know. Find someone that suits you, someone who actually channel you in a particular direction. That's what I do. I've actually completely given up. I'll let her decide everything now. It was really annoying when I first came over. Such passion and such anger. Most of it was just to keep her happy so that she could... You see, we argue not so that we argue. We argue so that she can be certain in her convictions. I have no real passion in the argument. I don't really care. But I can hold a good argument. I'm quite skilled at it.
Interesting.
But I'm just testing her. And she knows it. But she gets angry. But she also gets angry because she knows that I don't actually care about the argument that I'm having with her. And even more annoyingly, I often win because my point is made more articulately than hers, and with more passion and anger. Which, if anything, just frustrates and annoys her even more. Well, there's nothing wrong with a bit of passion in one's life. Keeps things running along, I suppose.
True. Yes.
So, you can do whatever you wish. I have no particular preference one way or the other. Our grandfather, the Emperor, he would have many choice words to say about that. But then I'm lost as well, so who am I to say? Tiger for me, by the way. Tiger. I was consumed by a tiger spirit when I was very young.
What happened?
I was obsessed with tigers. If I'm honest, absolutely obsessed. Took it as my personal one, dropped it back into my van, loved it. Great tiger, snarling tiger. Up to about the age of 21. By that point, I had 3 tigers. 3 whole tigers that were mine.
What?
Yeah. At the age of 25, I wanted to ride one. They were not happy. Age of 30, I just went to war with them. Then I wandered around. I got myself somewhat of a reputation. as the lone tiger. That is what they called me. And I would very rarely be seen without 2 or 3 of them, and they would scout out for me, look around. Oh, sorry, no, I became the tiger. I did not become the tiger. I merely saw out of its eyes. I merely understood what it understood. They're just tigers. They're just material things that lie around me. I was very much caught up with it, but that's the same thing you're doing.
But yours...
Cats.
Mm. Yeah, I guess.
They're just cats.
What is it with cats?
No, it's not just cats. Cats and foxes, and I don't know what it is.
Well, apparently, whatever had bound myself to me fell. I made it angry. I made it become unharmonious. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't...
Your mother's actually quite happy about that whole affair.
It seems to be...
She might be able to kill it. She couldn't kill it when it was a fox. You were keeping it alive. It was bound to you. Literally nothing she could do about it. She was hoping for this to happen for some time. The fact that it has, and I'll be honest, she's quite giddy. She thinks she might be able to get rid of it now. She intends to.
Well, it seems to be hindering the plans of the...
Look, I don't care.
I'm just telling you stuff so you can tell her.
I don't care. Speak to her yourself if you can. She won't listen to you. She thinks she knows everything.
But that's...
Look, I'm the exact opposite of her. That's why we work. I'm black, she's white. I'm top, she's bottom. Or not. I don't care. All she does is care. I'm not really angry. All she is angry. I'm not concerned at all about what you're doing. All she is concerned and can't even think about you for a moment without weeping. About the danger you're possibly walking into. About the nature of your soul and everything that it represents. About the fox and everything that it is. And everything, all the work that she has to do to try to make sure it doesn't just consume you. Oh, she's full of all of that. You'll be fine. You're a grown woman. Look after yourself.
You're doing okay so far.
Exactly. That's what I say to her. It generally gets me shouted out of the room, so I go and walk somewhere else.
That sounds quite intense.
Nights are quite nice here. They're always up for a drink.
Yeah,
Says.
that's the...
And the cats. I quite like that. Nice panther, cats. It just tickles me.
Yeah.
I asked if there's any night's lion or night's tiger, and apparently there's lion, but not tiger. I was a little bit disappointed.
Didn't Jiro... I swear I saw him when we were seeing you the first time. I swear I saw him like when he sprinted across the room. He looked like a tiger.
Oh, he's bound to me by blood. Right, so I'm going to give you an analogy here, and you're going to go, really? And I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Consider him like a priest of me.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm not joking.
I guess, yeah, we're talking in those terms.
You'll catch up. He's bound to me by blood. What I am runs through what he is. Oh, we kept that away from you. You don't want that. I can hear him in my thoughts all the time. That's how I know he loves you. That's why I can, I'll be honest, barb him with it. I know what he's thinking most of the time. He doesn't know anything I'm thinking, obviously. I know where he is most of the time. He knew I was alive, but he didn't know where I was. He thought I'd fallen somewhere. He was convinced of it when he was down in Karabakh. Convinced I'd fallen because he doesn't understand anything. So he had lost himself somewhat. And then, well, I obviously hadn't. And then he found you, which was for him very confusing, as it turns out. I mean, it's really very simple. I mean, for goodness sake. He won't touch you because obviously you're on the Imperial line. He just would never touch you, which makes it more difficult for him. I think the only reason he's in love with you is because he can't touch you. That's why he's in love with you. He's not really in love with that. It's just the ideal of it all. I don't understand humans. I think about them all the time, though. Try to understand why they do what they do.
Maybe that's why he was so mad when I wasn't what he was, like, expecting in his head. You know?
Sure. He says, I can feel him right now. He's currently frustrated, angry. Point. Over there. Says, That's
So
my
you
three
think-
brothers. There they are. Old times. I know where they are.
So you could tell where I am?
No, you're not bound to me.
I guess.
If you're
you-
bound to me by blood, sure, but you're not, so no. The Emperor, he probably knows who you are. He cleansed your soul, as he put it. Put his holy blood within you. But all he's going to get is other side of the world, so I would hardly see that as much of an eye over one's shoulder.
I guess. And in that case, our great-grandmother would know where we all are?
Probably. I mean, it's very possible that the very reason that you have been pursued in the way that you have is because what my father did. He touched you with the divine, so to speak, awakened it earlier than it normally would come. I can't say. I don't know.
Mm.
I'm supposed to know all of this. I'm supposed to sit you down and teach you all, but I avoided every single lesson I could. I despised it. Look, you have to understand me. I am the worst person to talk to about this sort of thing.
Mm. What about? Okay, you're not allowed to kill me, but would you like to spar about it instead?
Spar?
Yeah.
What would be the point? I'd destroy you.
No, but
It wouldn't be a spar. It would be a very boring lesson.
But
a very boring lesson. I mean, if you desperately want a boring lesson, I will give you a boring lesson where I move like I'm stuck in treacle and you move as fast as you possibly can. And then, I don't know, you say, yup, I move like I'm in treacle. What would you really like?
I don't know.
It will come with time.
Impatient.
I was impatient. I stormed out like a child. I became a Ronin. And I was bad at it, if I'm honest. Humans kept on being so emotional. They were always having problems with each other about petty things like an extra 12 feet of land or where a wall stood. And they would fall and go into disharmony over a wall, over where stones were placed, over a tiny shrine that nobody had cared for centuries, and suddenly it became important because it stood between two people, where somebody had dipped their wing. Why would anyone care so much? That is what I learned. That is truly what I learned when I was out there, that I just wasn't like them. That is what I had to learn. Maybe you'll learn something different. The Emperor, he didn't learn what I learned, which I think is probably to his detriment. He learned that everyone had to be led in a new direction. And look at the damage that that's caused. Well, you don't know because you're not over there, but they're at war.
And so what? The great harmony that you bring is by not affecting anything because you don't actually care enough to change anything?
Now you're speaking like my daughter. He says, however, I think it's fair that your mother disagrees with this position and that I am quite willing to sublimate my own desire to do nothing to her individual concerns because we made a deal. I recognize that I don't necessarily grasp the world in the same way that she does. And I am quite willing to listen to your mother because she is very clever. I will give her that. I'm not that smart. I'll be honest. Ome, I'm not that smart. And I'll admit, I'm maybe more intelligent than most of the people you might meet out there, but when it comes to things, your mother is much, much, much more clever than I am. And I do mean a lot. And she segregates herself from you and others for a reason. That's why I don't try to bridge that particular gap. When she makes a decision, she's done it for a reason. And I don't like to fight with her because she gets so angry and upset. And most of the time, she's right. And when I'm right, she gets really angry because it means she's made a mistake. That's why I argue with her, just to make sure she's done the right thing.
And so what's she doing about this gate in Middenheim?
She didn't even know it exists. How could she? You're the one that found it. I'm going to tell her about it. She's going to be frightfully annoyed. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
It's holding back
Oh, they all are. The problem with
something awful.
in Nippon, the gates are open, as they were millennia ago. And you can move into the Shinkai. And what lies beyond can come here. And if you know what you're doing, you can move from one gate to another. They are open. Because they are open, they can be brought into harmony. But if you damn them, which is what your mother wants to do, your mother wants to do what's here. If you dam them, then all you are doing is holding back the waters. And potentially that dam will break. Your mother disagrees. She thinks that if you dam them all, then the pressure will relent and the water will sluice by everything. Where I think she's really wrong. But she only has about 50 years to come to terms with that. And then she'll be dead. Unless she decides to do everything that she does not approve of, which will be to extend her life. The only way to do that safely also goes against her own beliefs. So it is unlikely she will. But she might. I think that's exciting.
No wonder she tried to kill Magritte.
Well, she doesn't like Magritte and everything she represents, but actually they were quite close friends.
Until she sent a demon at her? You said?
No, not strictly. She was making sure that Magritte was everything that she claimed to be.
Mm.
And Magritte indeed was, which was, I think, out of everything, the thing that confused her most, because Magritte was wrong about so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And that convinced your mother that she had been tricked.
Mm-hmm.
She believed things that were untrue.
She thought
I'll
we
give
were
you a single
cultists.
example. One thing
Mm-hmm.
was quite clear. She told my mother that all humanity was damned. All humanity was damned. It justified much of what they were doing. It's not true. An individual soul is only damned should it be damned. It lies in that soul alone, not the actions of one's forebears. My mother tried to dispute this with her. Your mother, pardon me, tried to dispute this with her. They were back and forth about it. Magritte was absolutely certain. She was absolutely certain, but your mother capitulated. Because she was drawing, slowly but surely, to the conclusion that she was a liar. And that this entire place was as horrific as it appeared. And that it wasn't a matter of trying to justify it with a certain number of beliefs. It was just a lie. So she tested it. Turns out it wasn't a lie. Turns out that the woman was entirely above board, but she had a twisted version of reality. She was working from many false premises. No matter how erudite she may be, she was incorrect about certain aspects of what she was doing, which meant that she was, of course, open to being manipulated, dangerous in a variety of ways. The entire place was probably worth bringing down, which apparently happened.
Yeah.
So, in many respects, you fulfilled your mother's desires.
And yet, she's lost somewhere underneath Middenheim at the moment.
Well, I'm sure you'll find her.
And that's part of why we're leaving.
Yes, I gather that I'm my own spies in court now. I'll say there's one thing that I can do quite well.
Yeah.
Tigers might be big, but they're also quite stealthy when they have to be. That's what the stripes are for.
Of course.
You have never seen me creep.
I have not. Probably for good reason.
Because of the stripes. That's why you haven't, he said.
I would like to, at the very least, learn how to not shout my thoughts in my dreams. That would be nice.
Then try not to.
Yes, I will, but there's nobody to tell me that I'm doing it, right?
Do you think there's anyone to tell anyone how to do these sorts of things? We're all individuals. We learn. I didn't need to teach you how to walk. You got walking. It just sort of happened. You got up off your bum and you started moving around. It's actually a bit of a miracle, I'll be honest, because you walked around on your bum for a long time. Your mother was quite convinced that you might just, I don't know, bum around for years. And there was a certain amount of amusement that came from saying that. Yeah, she's going to bum around for years. But you didn't. At about age 1.5, you decided that this was the day you were going to get up and you just wobbled around. Now, your sister, she was walking around and running by the age of 1, which was as it turns out, quite remarkable. But then your sister had a different mother.
But surely we did those things because we saw others walking around. If I'd never seen anyone walking, I may never have come to the conclusion that I could do it.
Oh, right. So that thing that you just asked how to do, who told you that you had to do that and had to do it a different way?
What do you mean?
You've already learned something that you want to do. Yes?
Yes.
Go do it.
I guess it'll take me another 1.5 years to figure it out.
I'm sure it will. You'll get there.
I'll get there.
You say 1.5 years like it's a long time. It's not that long. It feels long just now, but it's not that long. One day you'll grow up. So how old are you now? What year is this?
18.
18. Right. Oh, I should pay more attention. 18. I actually thought you were 22. Maybe 23.
I might be, and I just remember it wrong.
I really doubt you'd remember your own age wrong, incorrectly. Don't tell your mother I said that. Just don't tell her.
Okay.
Just don't tell her. That's an argument. I actually don't want to deal with her disapproving looks.
That's fine. But, Father, you did tell me I shouldn't tell this stuff to my group, to my friends.
Right, yes, no, of course.
But Jiro told them most of this already.
Did he?
Yeah. He opened with, she's a demon, and then went backwards and told them how we're all liars and...
Was he drunk? Or was he drunk on love?
I think he was just upset.
Oh, Jiro. Oh, Jiro.
He was really struggling with a poem at one point.
Oh, his
I may have suggested a different flower, you know.
Well, I think that I probably need to have words with him, which means I'm going to have to deal with his emotions. And the emotions he refuses to accept. Maybe I'll just confront him with it. Actually, might be a good idea. I've tried everything else.
I thought you already did confront him with it.
Not the way I'm considering doing it.
Okay. Do you want me to help?
Perhaps. I could send an artist round if you're willing to pose.
Okay.
Give them something.
Do you think that will help?
No, but it'll embarrass him. Yes. Yeah, that might get him out of his silly headspace. Look, human emotions don't make a great deal of sense to me. It's one of the reasons why I don't recommend getting them in your head. It's conflicting and odd, and obviously I'm human. Obviously, my emotions, and I'm emotional my own way.
You fell in love with Mother, apparently.
No, I made a decision to stay with her. Absolutely made a decision to stay with her.
Uh-huh.
That's it. I think that's love.
Okay.
I made the decision.
Uh-huh.
I'm more true than anyone else you'll ever know. How can that not be love? Oh, look, I'm not going to get sick because she's away or something. I don't care if she's with anyone else. Because that wouldn't be love. That'd be control. I'm not interested in control. If anything, I think that my love is purer than any love that these other people can claim as love. Most of them are just caught up with their obsessions and their petty interests and whatever sits directly in front of them. One gentleman at court was berating his wife for daring to show a touch of cleavage, as if she was property.
Yeah.
So I actually, I might have interrupted. You don't need to hear that story. You actually don't need to hear that story. I don't recommend you sort things the way that I do in general in life. In fact, I'm a bad role model, is what I'm now going to conclude this entire conversation with, because I broke them apart. That was what I thought was the correct thing to do. I got told off quite badly by your mother about this. I broke them apart. I got them to go in separate directions because I felt sorry for the woman.
I mean,
It's control. And this entire society here is based upon control. Control of everyone. My bloodline, your bloodline, who we are is based on the control of others. And we control ourselves before them. And I hate control. I just hate it. I hate everything it represents because of what it has turned our family into. What I run away from. So of course I'm going to cause problems for other people who control other people because I can. There we go. That's emotional, isn't it? That's what humans do.
yeah, to a certain extent.
Look, I'm human, no matter what my father might say. Oh, he's quite convinced that we're not human at all, as humans generate such things. Mother may have taken on the form of a human, but does that make her children human? Father was a human. So if a human has a child with a human, that makes a human, surely. And then if they have a child with another human, it just makes it more human. So I'm human. Never listen to the emperor.
Yeah. Well, apparently our blood, my blood, is very close to those of spirits, is what I've been told.
Well, that's what the emperor said. That we are of heaven.
Hmm.
And that
Which
I shall tell you what he told me. See if it makes any more sense to you.
okay.
The human half
Uh-huh.
and the divine half.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we begin.
Mm-hmm.
And the divine half is infinite. And the human half is finite. So it always takes up the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how you divide the divine half, because it is infinite, it always maintains the same part of the balance. So no matter how many generations pass, you are just as divine as you ever were. Of course, that sounds simple, but I think it's nonsense. We are, after all, tied up on the earthly realm. So we work by earthly rules, not by divine rules.
But then how do you explain all the things you can do? No other mortal does it.
I stubbed my toe and said, well, that was not very divine. He thought that was a poor argument, so I punched a wall. Divine? No. And he didn't see that as an argument. I'll admit, when I explained that to your mother, she called me an idiot. And she was right. I was, because I didn't know what the correct counter-argument was, but it felt intuitively wrong to me. It felt intuitively wrong, because there were, between me and the divine, so many steps.
But so fewer steps than everybody else.
Well, no one else has the divine in their steps.
Well, what about...
We have a restricted bloodline for a reason. We don't shed the divine wherever we go, because that would be unwise.
But what about those elves who've...
Elves aren't divine. Elves are elves.
Some of them have, like, become, like...
That doesn't mean that they come from the divine. That means that they've accepted the divine within them. That is a completely different situation. Are you going to tell me that someone is a demon because they've become possessed by one? No. They're not demons. They are people who are possessed by demons, and they'll probably die because of it. Because the divine cannot live long within the mortal. It cannot be done.
Yeah, one died the other day. Because I stabbed it. But...
Good. Good. Good for you. I've killed many of them in my time.
I don't know many things, but the things I know are that demon stab.
Good. It's a good start. You'll learn. I did it every year. You don't really need to know much. You just, you see them and you realize how wrong they are. You feel it inside you. You know. You know.
But they are good at tricking you.
No, they're not.
The foxes.
It wasn't a fox. And nor was it a demon by that point.
Is it ever gonna be...
It was out of balance. Demons, heavenly entities, when they're brought into balance, are no longer demons. They are something else. And it was in balance when it was with you because your mother forced it into that form. It did not want to be in balance.
But what about your tigers then?
What about them? The tigers
I thought they were.
and spirits. And they're in balance. Everything was fine. I don't see the point. What about them?
Couldn't the fox just also have been a spirit?
But it wasn't.
I guess.
No, there's no I guess. It wasn't. Your mother made it. And it found you and attached itself to you.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
And now it's gone?
No,
I think. Well,
it's not gone.
no, it's there,
It's
but
attached to you.
the mark isn't there anymore.
Was it there when you first got it?
I don't know. I can't see my back.
The answer is no.
Okay.
If there was a mark upon you, that'd be the demon trying to claim your physical form.
Yeah.
And if it's gone, then the demon is no longer trying to claim your physical form. For whatever reason that might be. You probably repulsed it yourself. I like to hope so. Maybe you didn't. I don't know.
There's some full marks left behind. It really doesn't like me going into divine places.
That's probably because it endangers it. Oh, don't worry so much about it. Well, I understand that I'm blithe. He says, I survived through it.
Yeah, but you seem much more immortal than I, even though apparently...
No, I'm just older. I just lasted a bit longer, that's all. And I'm not that much older than you. I mean, you're what? Is it 19?
18.
18, there you go. You're 18. I was rebelling quite a lot when I was 18. So, no, I'm... no, I've only got, what, 30-something years on you? It's hardly any. We're basically the same, you and I. We're basically the same.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm doing either.
That's reassuring, Father.
I love the way you think that I understand what's going on.
You've had 30 more years to figure it out.
You've got 20. Why don't you know more? Why aren't you teaching me? Good point. Why aren't you teaching me?
Well, I can teach you all sorts
Think
of
of
things.
all the answers that you have about who you are and what you are, and you'll be beginning to understand why I can teach you so little in return.
Can teach you Game of Bones.
Is that really going to help you deal with foxes?
It's one way that I pray to Renaud.
I find that strange. See? We do things differently. He says, we do things differently. I recommend, he says, that you don't worry about it and that you just simply set forth on your road and see where it ends. Because I can tell you where it ends already. In one of two places. You have killed the fox, or the fox has killed you.
Yay.
And that is why your mother doesn't want to talk to you. Because she made the fox.
She forced it to be.
She blames herself for the situation that you're in. And there is no easy way to remove it from you, except by your own action. You make the decisions. And they are not born of intelligence or even knowledge. They're born of gut.
I mean, I saved it to begin with. I don't know why she's feeling guilty about that.
Because she would rather it went somewhere else than you. You were doing the right thing. You were. Sheltering a distressed spirit. You were doing everything by the old ways. She was working contrary to the old ways. She was the one that made it happen. Why do you think she doesn't want you taught in the old ways anymore? She blames them for where you got to. She blames everything on that. Fortunately, you've got me as a father. I was more than happy to agree to that. I didn't like the old ways. Never liked the old ways. I think they're ridiculous. I think they're stupid. I became Ronin. I tried to rebel against them. I pretty much rode against... I rode against my father. Eventually, I appealed to my father to let me get out in the pond. All to protect you, ultimately, because if anyone found out that you had an imbalanced spirit of... It's a greater kami that is attached to you. The mountains themselves will quake in its passing.
Yeah.
It was the kami of that shrine. And your mother made it a fox. only the Imperial line should be able to do that to any kami, because they're the only ones that's supposed to understand it. Your mother has proven the lie of the Imperial line. So was I happy to go with her? Yes. Yes, I was. Was I happy to abandon everything that I was? Yes. Because she was right. She's clever. She's smart in a way I'll never be. And yes, I got very, very angry when I couldn't be ambassador. But that's what she wanted to see. That's what everyone expected. That's what the people expect to see. That's what the servants expect to see. My face had been diminished. I didn't care, because I did care about you, and I did care about her.
But if you didn't care, and why pretend with us? I don't see the point.
The second you stop pretending is the second someone notices. You were a child. You were more capable of keeping up pretense than a dog or a cat. You just existed. The pretense was not a choice. It just simply is how I was. I continued on, playing the part of a disgraced Imperial noble. His masculinity pulled out from beneath him. Well, my masculinity has been most deeply hurt. The situation we find ourselves in is absolutely untenable. We argue a lot. So be it. It is good. She knows it's a lie. I know it's a lie. But underneath it all is a great deal of thought. I'm clarifying her position. She is not telling me anything, knowing that I am connected spiritually to other entities, to other creatures beyond. Almost certainly my father.
Yeah.
I'm connected to him by blood, as are you. He is the divine emperor. He stands as the rising sun. And I am quite certain he can see anything that his blood does. Your grandfather is probably quite aware, should he wish to be, of where you are right now and what you're doing. When I was young, I came to that conclusion, and I did one thing every single night. Masturbated. Some would find that to be an unacceptable thing to do. For the fear that they were being watched, I did it the other way around. I believe my father would quickly grow bored of it.
I just have an elf who follows the path of shadows, but, you know, you do you.
I believe it probably worked. When you have the eyes of God sitting upon your shoulder, there is no need to feel shame. Because surely the gods understand exactly what you are by your very nature. That being the case, I made my nature much worse than he possibly could have imagined. I have used rather shallow language for the depths of my depredations. If father wants to watch, then I think that says more about him than me.
Wow.
So, if you ever think the rising sun is at your shoulder, deal with it whichever way you prefer.
Understood.
It says, the tea is cold. And it's growing late.
It is.
And your mother will be quite concerned that I filled your head with nonsense, which of course I have. So I have some closing remarks, because I believe closing remarks are worthwhile.
Okay.
I do this with my men. There's no point in me pretending that you're simply my daughter anymore. You're not. You move beyond daughter to being semi-divine, strange creature.
Okay.
Which means you're one of my men. And whenever I like to take my men somewhere and we do something that makes the men feel happy that they are men doing men things, he says, at the end, I like to conclude with something that makes them feel like they have consolidated everything that has been done through the day. It makes them feel like there has been a clear beginning, middle, and end to the day. And this is where we can consolidate a few things. Number one, you are of an ancient and divine line. And if you believe the tales and I do believe tales. You are heaven and earth joined in one. Now, according to my perspective, you're mostly earth. According to your grandfather, you're equal parts. Two things. Beyond that, there is sadly no teaching you what you are. There is no proper ritual, because if you go by the old way, what I was brought up with, you will be taught sword, and you will be taught form, and you will be taught to present a face, and you will be taught honor, and you will be taught duty. You'll be taught everything that the Imperial line is supposed to espouse. And then, once you master it, you'll be taught it's a lie. And that it's all a dance. And that you're actually a fox that is tricking everyone. And that you're half demon. And that you fight the demons because you yourself are one and are afraid of what the world will become should they succeed. Because ultimately, you are of a line that believes that the entire world is threatened by half of your existence. And that there has been a war fought since the very beginning of time to destroy everything, all because of your own divine ancestors, who were at the center of that war and were responsible for starting it. Pretty bleak place to begin, So all the lessons that you think you might be able to learn from others are nothing more than preparation for the truth, that it's all a lie. Now, does that mean it's not useful? Well, no, I'm pretty good at fighting him. Can you hear me? I'm a tiger. I'm very good at it, in fact. I learned most of my lessons on the battlefield when I was younger, on horse, using bow, using sword. Very good at it. And I thought I was bringing everything into balance. I thought, in fact, by challenging my own father, I was doing that. But it was all a lie. When I found out the truth, I realized that everything I was fighting against was not what I thought I was fighting against. That the traditions I thought I was trying to tear down were there for actually a legitimate reason. Because we're dangerous. And you'll know the day when I'm falling out of balance, because I will actually be angry. And I will have to meditate not to be. And I will be ferried off to a shrine somewhere to be praised, to be worshipped, and to be held as something special, when in truth, I'm very close to that which I am going to have to find. I don't want to become that. You, it doesn't sound like a good place to go. You have many cousins. That's the term that is often used in the palace, our cousins. The bastard byblows of many poor decisions from those who once held imperial titles before, many who are now dead or gone. Living demons, some of which are at one with the world, other of which most certainly are not. Some of which are great people, other of which are the worst. That is what they believe you are. I choose not to, because I choose to think in the purity of your mother. I believe in the purity of her purpose and the purity of her person, and just because she has fundamentally different beliefs to those whom I should have been mated with, does not mean that she does not have purity. I do not believe that is your fate. The fact that you've reached 18 and you've not turned into something, I think already shows that. There's not a horn to you. Yeah. But then, he says, it's the very nature and fate of us to change. So even should that occur, I don't think you'll be getting judgment from this household. Indeed, if anything, should such a thing occur, it's quite likely there'll be a smile. Because you're coming into your own. It will, of course, get you killed here. And should that ever occur, that's when we have to think about shipping you home. So all of that is to say, you're on your own, kid. We all were. We didn't used to be. Maybe 5, 10 generations back, but it changed because of all the trouble we ended up facing, because no one was prepared to make correct choices. No one was ready. No one had been put under pressure. Every single one of us, indeed, had been coddled, and we broke hard, almost bringing down the pawn every time. So extra traditions were added. Freedoms were granted. People were allowed to grow up in their own way. It ends up with people like me, though, so I don't think it's any better. Although, your mother disagrees, for whatever reasons. Goodness knows what she sees in me. I'm an absolute nightmare to live with. Well, I am. But I'm very good at acting. But I don't see any reason to act with you anymore. What's the point? There is no point. I don't believe in honor. I don't believe in duty. I don't believe in any of that concern. That is for my people. I am a god. I am not concerned by earthly matters, and these are earthly concerns. As a god, it is my duty, just to add a little bit of spice to it all, to not have that concern. But don't think that that is a universal view. My father disagrees so deeply with me that I find myself on the other side of the world, by my own choice, of course. But one sometimes wonders whether I was not sent here, and I was just led down the path of free will. You often find that with your elders, Ume. You think you're making a decision, but you find out you've just been boxed into a corner with very few decisions. You make a choice that you feel is yours, and you realize it was nothing more than a fixed agenda that someone else set. I did it to you all the time when you were a child. I much preferred you going, for example, down into the streets of Renald than I did down into the bloody dogs. There was a strong possibility you were going to head off with mariners. Well, I didn't like the idea of that at all, because we'd have to come and fetch you. At least if you were down there thinking that you were having to return to ensure that you kept yourself undercover and new, you'd return every night, thus bringing safety. I didn't really think there was any chance that they would harm you. Far too charming. And far too capable.
I did okay.
You did, exactly. You returned every night. Your mother was horrified. Most nights, she couldn't sleep when you were out, which meant most nights she didn't sleep very well, convinced that you would come back maimed, dead. I had no such worries. I'd been through it myself. I had confidence. Confidence in you. Confidence in your blood, confidence in what you were, and confidence that you just, as my father put it when he was describing me, you can't always be that lucky. But I was.
Yeah.
So, one day, you'll have a word with someone that you've probably accidentally spawned. Says, and you'll say something similar, and they'll come to you with all the questions in the world about who you are and what you are and where you come from, and you're going to have to try and filter through all the nonsense you've heard from people like me. Eventually, your mother, should she ever get over her great concern that you might die in the next week or so, the nonsense she'll throw at you, possibly that you'll hear from others like Jiro. Gosh, I hope you don't talk to Jiro too much. He will fill your head with nonsense. You will listen to them, and then you will try to pare that all down and tell them what they are. Then that day you will go, oh, I understand, Father. I understand. None of it makes sense. And the more you say it out loud, the more ridiculous it seems. What do you mean grandmothers in a tree and grandfathers in a moon? What do you mean magic shakes the world and brings it to an end? What do you mean you're a god, you arrogant, arrogant man? But by that point, you'll be feeling pretty divine yourself, assuming you're not dead,
Yeah.
which I don't think you will be.
To stop the end of the world first, apparently.
Why? You're divine.
Well, I have nobody to make that child with.
No, you're beginning to sound like your ultimate grandmother. And why she created this place in the first place.
Yeah.
Lonely. I can get that. I don't want to go on to the other side. And I don't want to sit in a shrine. And I might not understand them very much, but I like them. And I like eating. And I like fighting. And I like, no, I love your mother. And that's not I think. I've decided that I do, so I do. Find out your uncertainty, wherever it may lie. And you will probably, through doing that, learn more about yourself than you could anything else. Because then you'll get something that no one else really has. Just a modicum of happiness in your life. And you'll realize that, oh, I can be happy. Now, you might not need to travel to the other side of the world to do that. You might not need to spawn a demon child. You might not need to go to war with your father. Please don't. But you might. And none of it is wrong, because none of this really matters. This is all earthly. It is there. And I like it.
Yeah. What are we without the earthly bits, right?
Yeah. But do be aware your mother has very different opinions.
I can imagine.
Very different opinions. But I say, it's getting late and your mother's going to be worried, so I'm going to go back. I'm not going to offer you an apology for this rambling mixture of different stories, because I actually think if I told you the stories that I was told, they would bring you less certainty, because they would feel more absolute. And the stories I have are absolute. They're the ones that were filled within my mind when I was young. And that certainty was my undoing.
It's okay. I'm used to it with Ronald.
Yeah, I am going to have to, he says, research that a little more. I'm interested. I've been interested for a few years, I'll be honest. I've read some of the books. Mostly nonsense. Some pretty simple tricks. Lots of stories about tricks. How to live your life by trickery. Some of them are quite cruel, I found, which was interesting. Cruel, but I think true to human nature. After all, think of most of the things that are funny. Think of almost all the things that are funny. They are generally taking a laugh at someone else's expense because someone hasn't understood something, or has fallen, or has otherwise been the butt of a joke. That is an interesting insight into human nature, and very nature perhaps of the God that you are currently following in the footsteps of, which perhaps might bring you more clarity than I've ever had. Much more. I've never followed in the footsteps of a divine entity. I simply am one. Maybe that's where I went wrong. The grandfather, he has always tried to live his life, always, by what he believed were the teachings of, the august center of heaven. And he tries to center himself in exactly that state. But as far as I'm concerned, he's denying everything else that came after. Because when she came down into the earthly plane as a nine-tailed fox, she could hardly have been more different. But he chooses to think that that is the route to understanding. I choose nothing as the route to understanding. I rely on myself. actually love this city and the way the people think here. I have never been more in my element than I have here. An entire knightly order of cats, another order of dogs, and they bicker. And they deny trickery in all their forms and believe that at their very heart, there's only one thing that matters, themselves. So close to my philosophy. Mother hates it. She wants out of here as soon as she can possibly have. I'm dragging my heels with every single inch that I can.
Well, the gate that is below the silver flame might keep you here for a while.
You have given me a gift. A gate beneath the city that lies at the heart of the spiritual outpouring at the very center of this place. I could not be more pleased.
She'll explain the sewer door that they came out of, and how there's a second entrance.
He smiles and says, you are aware that if your mother has your own way, what she'll do?
Yes, well, I believe it's fallen.
There will be no flame. It will be extinguished. Because as far as she's concerned, it is places like this that will bring about the end of the world.
Well, won't that be very interesting for the Sigmarites?
I think the cats and the dogs and everyone else will be rather upset. I'll admit, I live for this. There's a part of me that hopes that it turns to war here, because they now get to fight. I've always lied at the very heart of the storm. Then all of us do. We may not use magic, but it gathers around us and it is. Because we're gods. Ultimately, it emits from us. And the closer we get to the roots of the world, the more it spills free.
Or not magic. Whatever.
Nope. It's magic. Because magic is the heavens.
Okay.
But we don't shake the roots. Because we are fundamentally made of the same stuff. And that's where I say, I don't understand how it works. He says as he gets up, I don't need to. Mother, she needs to. After all, she's the one who's going to try and completely ruin the city for me. Says, I'm going to go have an argument with her. It's going to be deeply passionate. She is not going to be happy with what I'm going to conclude, which is that we have to leave. And that she should not investigate this place and it will be a detriment to you and a detriment to her. And she's going to argue that closing the gate here and understanding exactly what the gate is and what lies within it and then turning that into something that is in balance. It's ultimately what has to be done. He stands. Oh, I'll end with a loose little theory of your mother. See what you think of it.
Okay.
That's it. It's a loose one. She's of the opinion, be it true or not, that twins, says, that twins, they are nothing more than the two halves of a soul, the balance and the imbalance. She's so convinced of this, in fact, that she thinks that most twins are, in fact, just one soul. Not all, but identical ones. She thinks that they are two halves of the same thing. They share souls. She's convinced of this, and she's been investigating for some time, and I half believe it. But the reason that I say this is because she is of the opinion that if you can bring a great entity that also is a twinned entity into balance, that you can never, ever truly do so. Because an entity, a kami of this power, is from the heavens. And thus is eternal. And will always have the other part of itself, no matter what you do. Now, the reason I argue with her is because I don't understand it. So I just argue with her, throwing barbs at her that she gets very frustrated by. She attempts to make her position clear. But I only bring that up because the reason I know you're safe is because I'm not entirely dissimilar to my father. I'm always at your shoulder. Or I might be lying. Says, but I do have stripes. He says, and I am a tiger. And I did hear once that Ulrich has a twin. Good night. He makes his way out, leaving Yumi to consider WTF as she then gets herself ready for the next day, where she's about to go delving down beneath the depths of Middenheim.